everyone. Sorry for a little bit of a later start tonight, but I'm actually recovering from a bunch of madness over the last little while. And as you can see, there's a big black line down the middle of my the middle of my broadcast. So I'm actually going to take a quick minute to try and try to figure out what's going on with that. There it is, and that's my tea. But yeah, so I can't even remember if I've ranted about all the computer problems that I had over the last little while. And I do kind of need to vent, but it would also be really nice to get into the game. So I've got my quality options. Looks like everything has been tagged up properly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump into the game as quickly as I can. I did actually want to take a quick mention and say that for those of you who are into tabletop strategy, I do have an affiliate link for, I really actually should be talking about the better affiliate, or not affiliate, but it's not even sponsorship, but the connection with Hooded Horse, who graciously sent along a key a little bit before the game was released. So even though I was a Kickstarter backer of Terra Invicta, I was given the opportunity, along with a few other broadcasters, to play it a bit early and show it off, and that also included the demo, which again, as somebody who is a smaller broadcaster, is something I really appreciate, because it's normally something that like there's kind of two tiers of streamer now, and this has been true for a few years, where it kind of used to be that there was sort of this blanket earlier release for games that were coming out, and essentially, if you were a large broadcaster, sort of you would be given an early look at a game, and then for smaller broadcasters, essentially what would happen is you would be given you'd still be given sort of the press key, but the press key would sort of be at the time that everyone was able to play, which I actually don't have that big of a problem with, right? Like the thing is that every developer is going to have their strategy for getting the word out, and I have a feeling that probably larger broadcasters have demonstrated some qualities that sort of show that they can, just by virtue of their size, that they can connect with an audience, and that they may show the game in a better light. And it can save, obviously a very overworked community team or streamer outreach team the effort to sort of vet the people who be going through. I think, was it Wednesday or Monday? But I had to give the warning. It's like, okay, I tried hosting, I'm gonna raid this person. I don't know who they are. I feel like I need to be careful. I need to be careful, to just say I don't endorse what they say, because sometimes they wind up being a bit of a jerk. And like, sure enough, the last time I raided someone, it was absolutely somebody who was really someone I would have preferred not to host, to be honest. And that came up a few minutes after hosting them. Sorry, why did I go on this? Oh yeah, no. So I mean, that's an example in terms of why, even though it's not necessarily to my benefit as a smaller broadcaster for that system to be in place, I understand why it is. But with that in mind, again, this is not so much to sort of air any grievances as far as the way that streaming works. The difference here is just it is one of these cases where, like a lot of creative endeavors, the successful are very, very successful. And then there's sort of this huge sort of valley of death for quite a few people who are, who are trying to get by. But, it tends to be sort of almost this bimodal. Well, no, bimodal is probably not the right way of putting it. But you tend to have fantastic success, and then you have a lot of people sort of scraping by. And this is true for movies and games and broadcasting and so on and so forth. And one of the ways that those patterns can be repeated is, of course, that if you are given that earlier access, if you're given those looks, then of course more people are going to want to check out your stuff just by virtue of the fact that you're playing something new. So with that in mind, even though I'm a Kickstarter backer for this game, it's one of these cases where I do want to give a thank you to Hooded Horse. Obviously, there have been a few Hooded Horse games that I've been playing, and I hope not just Against the Storm, which I noticed a lot of people seem to really like and get into, but I'm hoping that a lot of these games are things that not just that you like, watching. But maybe they're hopefully connecting you with some things that you may not have looked at before. I know Hooded Horse is doing a really good job of positioning themselves as a very good publisher of interesting strategy and RPG titles. But I'm always interested to see how much of my own tastes wind up being shared by the audience, and how many people are just kind of enjoying watching something that maybe they wouldn't necessarily want to play themselves. And it seems to be there's actually quite a few people who like playing this sort of stuff, but it's always neat to see. And it's also nice to acknowledge when I've been given a key for things. But the other little bit of advertising I wanted to get out of the way, and I'm always reluctant to do this one because honestly, this is not my favorite affiliate thing that I'm connected with, but I did put it in at the request of people. But Humble Bundle, and they actually have a bundle that I kind of like. So usually I don't, so I always have this link, but I usually don't like recommending the link unless it's something that I'm thinking of picking up myself or have picked up and, they're redoing it. But for those of you who are fans of science fiction strategy, there is the Introduction to Battletech bundle by Catalyst Game Labs. Now, I will stress that, just like in the case of the key, I was given this early access to Terra Invicta. And I mean, ultimately I was given a key. Like I'm sure I've got my, Kickstarter one kicking around here somewhere. So I was given something for the purposes of covering the game. Likewise, if you follow that particular link, I am actually going to be given a portion of the sales. In fact, I believe for that link, you would actually be able to specify how much I get out of it under the Adjust Donation button. And I highly recommend you use that, either the extra to charity or the custom amount option. Custom amount is if you want to set a certain amount to me, extra to charity if you just want to put the amount to the extra towards the charity. But I do not like the way that Humble has set it up. In fact, even under the extra to charity, the Humble amount is not set to a minimum. And you'll notice that Humble has now actually put a minimum amount that goes to them. And it's the only thing that they do for that. So there's no minimum amount to charity. There's no minimum amount to the developer. It's just Humble that's guaranteed to be making money off of that. And that doesn't really strike me. And I mean, I brought it up at the time. I don't really think that's the way to go. I don't necessarily think it's wrong for people to sort of expect to be paid for things that they do. I do think, though, there's something a bit weird that it's only Humble that's getting that minimum amount. But anyways, it's a system that's there. I am interested in this one. I do actually already have a few BattleTech. I have a few BattleTech like physical products myself, but there's a few. I don't know. There's a few items in here that I don't have, and I'm interested. Let's say. Sorry, I just had dinner, so it's also a chance for me to catch up. How you doing, Vanguard? I hope you're doing well, and your GoFundMe is getting some momentum. But in any case, so like I said, I just because of that, the way Humble does stuff, and I just think everybody's got something to sell right now, right? So, you don't want. I'd like this to be stuff that I feel is connecting people with things they might be interested in, as opposed to just being some like video billboard. But in this case here, I'm going to make a guess that the BattleTech bundle is possibly of some interest. And in this case here, there is actually a physical product. So if you want the beginner box, you can spend about, I think it's $20 Canadian, $16 Canadian extra for the amount. And I'm sure there's like some kind of a shipping cost associated with it as well. But in any case, it was one that caught my attention. If you have another broadcaster that you want to support through those affiliate links, obviously, please do not feel any sort of obligation to use mine. And frankly, if you do use mine, I am not going to feel bad at all if you decide to go and put the full amount towards the the charity. I think it's dumb for me to sort of promote a charity thing and then, ask for my cut. I'm not going to sit here and blast Humble for doing that thing and then encourage you all to take some money and put it towards me. One other thing I'll mention as well, I do normally also like highlighting when the O'Reilly books are added to Humble, and there is actually one going on right now, but it's designing and developing for web apps. It's not one that this is not an area that I'm really familiar with, so I couldn't tell you if any of the O'Reilly books are good ones. Usually the best I can say here is that if you see a book inside there that you would have picked up on your own, decide whether or not the bundle is worth it for you. And pick it up. If you are trying to figure out if any of these things are worthwhile, buyer beware. I kind of feel like some of the O'Reilly stuff I've picked up lately is not quite the same as what its reputation sort of suggests. Anyways, like I said, I'm busy here saying that I don't want to turn this into a video billboard, and I have spent... Jesus, has it been really 10 minutes? I'm sorry. Some of the disclaimers and all of that are good to get out of the way, but that was too long. If I didn't cover this before, it's not been great on the technical side, and I should maybe just briefly address that. So I ordered some upgrades for the computer, and in fact, this is probably where I originally had bought parts for the computer for streaming. I'm still actually using the same machine that I bought sort of through donations to the broadcast. So first of all, thank you, all of you who contributed to that. But this time here, I actually wound up doing some upgrades which are a little bit more oriented towards data. So like the amount of RAM that I have is definitely not anything that a game is going to wind up using. The process, I guess if you play like Total War or something like... Well, actually, probably Terra Invicta uses quite a bit, but I don't know... I don't know how they run it all in the background. But yeah, there's basically a reasonably good processor and a couple of other upgrades, which were more about my data work rather than messing around with games. Although I'm sure, having lots of cores is kind of nice for just being able, I don't know, if I want to run a virtual machine while I'm doing streaming, I guess I can use it for that. But for whatever reason, the motherboard wasn't working, so I had to send that back today. I ordered a new one. I actually spent more for a different one, and now I'm feeling like an idiot. But with all of that in mind, I'm back on the old system. It's probably 2 days, because I actually sent it into a store to see if the motherboard problem was like something that could get fixed. Because I really don't want to have to wait for the thing in the mail, and I really didn't want to rebuild my old PC. I'd already, just taken all the pieces and smashed them on the ground like a rock band. No. In any case, to the credit of the tech, I sort of explained what I was able to do, and it was different from what they said. So we had two very different conceptions of what the problem was, and I'd actually paid a fairly substantial amount for a rush job to be done. And so we sort of kind of came to an agreement. We said, okay, there's not really any work that's been done on this. Let's just pack this thing up. You can take it home and kind of get it back to the state that you had before. And if you want, you can bring it back and we can work on it then. And so, I was out like the Uber trips to move the computer around, and I spent kind of an evening. I didn't just test the machine, but I finally gave a full-on cleaning for my tower. I don't actually have a workbench or anything like that, so I was just hunched over the thing all night, kind of cleaning all the individual components. So my back was killing me by the end, but it was probably the longest and most stressful cleaning of my computer that I've done. But anyways, it's obviously working well enough for the broadcast, but with all of that in mind, some of the stuff I was talking about in terms of any changes to save files and all of that, that is still forthcoming. I'm sure probably sometime this week, although I have some videos that I need to send out to people, so I may delay the how you doing, Algrins? I may delay the arrival of, or not the arrival, I may delay the you know, the assembly of things, just to make sure that there isn't another interruption to the production. I was utterly embarrassed by the state of my cake, because, like, I mean, like, I'll do the occasional dusting, like, if I need to, like, mess with the internals, but I don't want to mess with the internals that much, right? That's the sort of thing you don't want to do with your computer. So, like, it's been a few years, and, like, again, there's the periodic cleaning. It's not like I haven't touched the thing in years, but, like, definitely the hard-to-reach areas, I'm looking at that, I'm like, Jesus, like, I'm an animal. So that's been taken care of. But needless to say, I'm stressed out and tired and otherwise just kind of decompressing. It was a long weekend, not the long weekend I was expecting. It's bad when they open it up and they find the Ark of the Covenant on the motherboard. Yeah. Sorry, I do have a message from someone. I just wanted to make sure they're doing okay. Okay, so just a recap for folks. I have been playing kind of the tutorial. I probably have been playing the tutorial very slowly, but I think it's a decent way of approaching the game. Now, you'll notice the aliens have not been idle. They have been building up industry, and I've sort of been moving towards industry, but not nearly fast enough. So Theseus now has a or I guess it doesn't have a base on it, but it has a station orbiting it, the Eternal Harmony Station. So it doesn't look like it has any defenses yet, but this is the sort of thing I should be worried about, right? Because the longer I let this thing stick around, the more powerful it's going to be, the larger their industrial capacity, and so the bigger the problem I have to deal with in the future. I received a key, right? A key for... Sorry, I don't think I get the joke, Algrins. But in any case, I've been working through the tutorial. This does explain a couple of the choices that I've been making. Yes, I did cover that. I've been talking about the I've been trying to go through the tutorial of the game. I've been so number one, like, I'm usually just quite slow in terms of playing games. It is kind of nice. I always think it's nice to be able to play a game sort of the way the developers sort of think it should be played. So I should mention that there are some good YouTubers who apparently have done some very popular guides for the game, and I'm sure at some point I should give them a look, if nothing else, just so I can learn how to become a better YouTuber. But we're at the point now where I've been sort of following some of the guides inside of the game here. So they are recommending for me to build a lab. Now, I believe I'm actually already doing that. We would need to go back to Earth for, well, not exactly Earth, but near Earth. Actually, no, if I recall correctly, the station that we built is very far away from Earth. Okay, now this is curious. There's 2 solar collectors here. Or it seemed to be, at least.
Flight controller is about 15 seconds to CSM ACK.
So solar collector being built here. Wasn't I building a lab? That's a big mistake if I built 2 of these. And I guess there's no way for me to...
Roger, CSM active.
I guess there's really no way for me to undo the construction. How you doing, Romonger? What I was meaning to do was a social science lab. So I guess that's an unfortunate bit of
AOS CSM.
it's a bit of unfortunate waste. We've completed the Build a Lab objective. Once our lab is complete, the station will lend support to our efforts to resist the aliens on Earth and beyond. In the future, we will need to expand our station's capabilities to support more than 4 modules. To do so, we will need to research the orbitals tech and then complete the orbital core project. Launch a new probe. For the moment, our material needs for our space assets are being provided by our launch facilities on Earth. This strains our boost income. We will have to expand our operations across the solar system to alleviate this and build a strong interplanetary economy. The first step to constructing bases on other planets, moons, and asteroids is to launch probes to assess various sites on those bodies. Probes may be launched from Earth, from habitats with a space dock or larger spacecraft construction module. Once a probe arrives at a space body, each site's mining data will be visible. Select a space body within range and select the probe operation to target it, and then confirm the launch. So we did actually already do this. You're doing all right considering the alien invasion, inflation, and receding hairline. Okay, so yeah, we did this not just for the moon, but we've done this for Mars. Now, what we could maybe try and do would be, or maybe we can't maybe we cannot mine the moons of Mars. Oh. Deimos we can. Okay, no, we can. Alright, so Phobos, water, and volatiles. Deimos. Let's try it. A probe under the control of the Resistance has been launched towards Deimos. It will survey potential mining sites and allow the construction of habitats on the surface. Okay, anyways, I apologize. Obviously I was getting distracted partway through the description. So, I'm trying to follow the game's recommendations in terms of the order of doing certain things. That is a nice effect of allowing me to just sort of focus on one set of tasks at a time. One big challenge that I needed to deal with earlier on, and this was in the previous week's broadcast, I'm over my cap as far as nations. Now, there are some science projects that I'm doing that will hopefully get us past that. But for the time being, I've got I basically have some fancy footwork to do, and for the most part, this just involves me dancing around Mexico and trying to make sure that I either chuck out the bums or maybe follow up on some enemy faction or enemy counselors. So you can see here, right now, we've completely lost Mexico, but we should have... Well, I thought we would have a better chance. Oh, no, sorry. We're going to have to work hard on the Protectorate, but for the rest, we should be in fairly good shape for taking out the initiative. Now, let's just take a quick second here. So we're doing launch a probe, so select a space body within range, select a probe operation to target it, and confirm the launch. We've done that here. We're also working on building a mine at one of our bases, and the reason why I'm building the station is I'm trying to reduce the boost cost of sending a mine out to the moon. Now, whether or not that works is a whole other question, but that's kind of where the playthrough's sitting. Another thing that I'm working on slowly is basically taking any of the empty countries, and even if it means that I have to sort of abandon the government there, I'm trying to sort of take it away from people who might be at minimum hostile to my interests, or if it's just empty, to maybe, bring it onto my side and see if I can do something with it. So in this case here, like Norway, I'm not that worried about the protectorate, but I already have the executive, so maybe I want a more secure position. I'm not sure, because the plan is at some point I'm going to have to worry about or think about a future where I have more command cap to work with. But anyways, I am going to take a second here and go through the log. I tend to skip over a lot of these, and maybe that's not the best thing for me to do. Italy and the United Kingdom have ended their alliance. Philippines and Iran have ended their alliance. Italy and Iran have ended their alliance. Turkey and Iran have ended their alliance. India and Iran have ended their alliance. Iran and the United Kingdom are now allies. North Korea and South Korea have ended their alliance. And, okay. So for the rest of these, I don't mind skipping over anything that's related to a country. I'll take a look at. But Taiwan has initiated a spaceflight program, and the Alpine states. Okay, so now we're in a position to sort of speed things up. I've noticed that 4 is a good default to be on for. How you doing, Tiberiosity? 4 is a decent speed to be on while I'm waiting for things to happen.
We've moved the needle.
Okay.
Targets lost.
Okay, we did not succeed on the crackdown in Mexico. I think I'm just going to repeat that because it would be nice to chuck everyone out, but as far as the purging is concerned, that should be... we shouldn't have any worry about that. We are now able to undertake the Restored Warsaw Pact project. Russia gains a claim on the following regions: Sofia, Bucharest, Warsaw, Berlin, Prague, Bratislava, Budapest, and Helsinki. Control point lost. We have lost the executive control point in Norway to the Protectorate. Many of our people are no longer responding to our communications, and we have lost a significant amount of power over events there. So that's a shame, but I'm okay.
We've removed some threats.
The Protectorate. So the kinds of people who I don't necessarily feel that threatened by, the Protectorate and Humanity First, in broad strokes, have sort of a resistance against the aliens approach, so I can work with that. Project Exodus is also useful to us to a certain extent, because they want to. I mean, they want to abandon Earth, but at the very least, what we can do in this situation is we can we can follow with them up to the point where they cease to be useful, like where they stop. Where they maybe start focusing more on, civilian applications of space flight rather than military applications. But again, they can be useful to us. The Exception, thank you very much for 56 months of subscription. Speaking of the Ark of the Covenant. So the kinds of factions that we don't really want to have any space for are groups like the Servants, and I'd even argue that the Academy, even though they are interested, they are about advancing human technology, they're maybe not a fifth column for the aliens, but they're certainly useful idiots. So in that case, I don't really want to I really don't want to let them have too much comfort. I hope you're doing well, and I am delighted to see you using my, or not mine, but using the System Glad emote. I don't say me because, of course, the Eyes of Sin is responsible for those emotes. Anyways, we have gotten the mass media from Mexico. We should see another... we have detected an alien base on Jethro's Gambit. So that's probably a brand new one. Oh, it's a mining base. So at some point I would like to try and... oh. Alright, that's a shame, but I'm not gonna... This was a target of opportunity for us.
We've gained significant support.
Detected a station belonging to the aliens orbiting Portia.
Our enemies are still in control.
Okay. Now, it says there's some new orgs available, but unless we have the administrative cap for it, it's not really going to help us that much. But there's a little bit of reorganizing that I need to do in terms of how I'm using my counselors. So, the Alliance, Norway under the control of the Protectorate, and Portugal have ended their alliance. We've got... So is the story with Iran? Iran and South Korea are now allies. Norway and Portugal have ended their alliance, and the European Union and Italy have ended their alliance. Okay. So, first of all, how are we in the States? Okay, so we've got our 51% in the States. I think now is the time for us to deploy our people to more useful areas. We're going to go for a public support mission in Mexico now.
I will try to sway the public.
Ready for orders.
Now, Nancy,
Ready
we've been
for
using
orders.
for controlling
At your service.
controlling nations. Australia? I don't want to put you there. I suppose I could look for the highest probability. Jordan. I mean, why not, right? I'm not really going to be using her for anything else.
We'll be running this place in no time.
At your service.
Okay, so I want to see who my best candidate is for the purge missions.
Reporting in.
Well, that answers that.
Targeting the opposition.
Where to?
My god.
Removing our enemies.
Now, Hyrong, on the other
Warning.
hand, we've got the Crackdown. Now, I'm doing this partly just because of their investigative abilities. But it's 12%, so I'm not expecting
Targeting
miracles
their
here.
center of power.
Now, we are at a point now where we're losing 8.8. So the first thing that I want to do is try and clear out all these other regions before I... because as you can see here, Crackdown on our control point in Turkmenistan is expired. There's a few others like that. So there's always... like, there are costs to doing this, right? I am... ultimately, whenever I abandon these regions, I'm potentially opening them up to the enemy. But the flip side of that is I can't really afford to be losing this much influence by being over the cap. So this is where I'm taking this approach. Approach of, abandoning things that I've just gotten, and that's just because it's getting things like Mexico is a little bit of a higher priority for me right now. So anything kind of in the Eastern Hemisphere is not really a high priority for me right now, so I don't necessarily mind abandoning those. I don't really think I have that much in this part of the world. Man, the servants have really locked down India. That's going to be a worry. Yeah, at this point I think we just start kicking out regions in Central America, unfortunately. Basically until this number goes positive. There we go. Okay, let's confirm the assignments. And again, we're waiting on the probe before we go too much further. Now we've got the Romulus Foundation. This will improve our influence. This is tempting because of our this will help me. This helps out the other side of the equation. We can potentially move up the cap by just earning more influence. However, Regulus Semiconductor is actually better for Nancy Ford because of her science. So in this case, I'm actually going to buy up Regulus Semiconductor. I think everybody else is full up. Yeah, so I'm losing the chance for the extra influence, unless I happen to have... Well, congratulations, you're now head of the Romulus Foundation. Right, he needs 22. So one of the reasons I'm putting so much effort into administration is this does wind up improving. So it's not just that it gives me additional organizations, it winds up giving me the ability to like hold more countries. Okay, I'm gonna hang on to that for now. Let's keep going. I'm going to have to wind up abandoning a few more nations, but again, right now I want to focus on keeping this number positive, even if it's just a small positive. Hurricane. A massive hurricane has struck the Washington region in the United States of America. The damage is potentially horrific. We may mitigate the damage by directing funds and ops to the area. So we can say that's terrible or divert resources to help out. Now the ops that's giving up a lot, but in this case I think it's worth it. Causes limited damage to the economy and population in Washington, grants significant public opinion boost for the resistance in the United States of America, and all armies in the affected region suffer minor damage. So a massive hurricane has struck the Washington region in the United States of America. Romania has initiated a spaceflight program, and in this case we just wait for
We're winning their hearts and minds.
everything to pay off. Okay. We're at 54% in Mexico, so I may want to start directing my charm offensive elsewhere. So I'm going to hit continue there. And our adversaries have conducted a crackdown on our legislature control point in the Caribbean states. So this is something I'm willing to give up if it comes to it, although I probably should have tried to get the executive. I guess that's neither here nor there.
Targets got away.
I'm pretty sure we just got the probe. Operatives with the resistance have spotted suspected counselor for an enemy. Okay, yeah, that's fine. And we failed to crack down on the protectorate, so we'll just repeat that mission. I feel a little bad that the probe... I missed the probe news, though. Okay, so this is a bit of a weird one for me because it seems to me, select a space body within range, select the probe operation and target it and confirm the launch. So it seemed to me that we completed that mission. I'm wondering if it's just going to sort of hang... Oh, nope. So the probe was launched, but it didn't actually seem... I don't think it's there yet. It's en route. I guess it doesn't say the actual date. Now, I still think we've launched it, but I'm okay waiting it out and seeing where it all goes.
We're in control here.
So that's probably going to push us, yeah, that pushed us over the edge. I'll wait till the next
Our people
session.
have taken control.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, hang on. We got both in Mexico.
We
No,
were unable to establish control.
we did not get both. All right. So what's the deal here? We were able to get... Huh. I'm not crazy about the Protectorate locking down the legislature, but I mean, those are the rules of the game, right? It's gonna make life hard for me, but I can live with it. Okay, the United Kingdom under the control of the Initiative and Mexico have ended their alliance. So we're gonna do sort of a perpetual crackdown on the legislature.
down.
The other thing I think I might do
Standing by for
is
orders.
I might
Ready.
get Irina. Okay, that's a 0% chance, so there's no point in wasting
here.
a counselor on a mission like that. So,
Standing by.
we are definitely ready to... Okay, we didn't succeed with Jordan. In fact, one thing I'm going to do right now is just get the executive in the Caribbean states, even if it's a
Bringing
long
them
shot.
on board.
Your orders?
Okay, so I guess the
Acknowledged.
question is,
Ready for my mission.
where do I want to purge?
Standing by.
Standing by.
Suppose the easiest thing for me to do would just be to find what region is most likely to...
Terminating the opposition.
Ready to go.
Standing by for orders.
So in these cases,
We're
right, these are
taking
easy
power.
things for me to take away
Reporting in.
from a faction that I'm not crazy about. Now, I'm above 50% in all of the different regions that I prioritize the most. So one thing I might want to try here is just to take a look at some of the bigger countries. So like Russia and China are both going to be difficult for me to sort of win hearts and minds over. But I kind of want to see which one I might be able to get away with. So just again, the fact that it gives me it gives me an ordering based on likelihood, that winds up being really helpful. So actually, one thing I could be doing is working on the European Union, given that they've already incorporated a couple of other regions. So it looks like Russia might be an easier target for me than China. No, that can't be right. So Russia's at 47%. What's the deal with China? It's definitely not 97%. Oh, do I just not have the option of doing a public campaign in China? What did you do? Billionaire, demagogue. Oh, enemy of the state. Faces imprisonment or execution in his or her home state. Cannot perform missions in the home nation. Now I want to know this guy's backstory. All right. So, Russia, the EU, and the UK are all very attractive options. But it does look like the EU is increasingly under the control of factions that are hostile to humanity's long-term interests. So we're going to do a public
We must
campaign
persuade
there.
the people.
As you can see, there's a big support for the servants. So we're going to want to do something about that.
Ready
Um,
to
I'm
go.
also going to slightly adjust a couple of things here. Wow, that is a really small probability of success.
We're taking power.
One final thing I need to do is kick out the remaining countries that aren't carrying their weight. So I am really worried I'm going to have to ditch Mexico after all of this. We didn't have to before, but we didn't control 3 out of the 4 slots. Yep. That is a shame, because it seems to me like the servants are going to... Or not the servants, the protectorate are going to be pretty aggressive in claiming those other sites. So I think what I might do is I might actually run at the loss for a little while and see how this turns out. How you doing, Takri? Yeah, I'm gonna suffer the minus 1.74. That's a daily income, by the way, so this is going to be something that hurts quite a bit. One other thing I forgot about was the science race, and I was keeping track of my progress. Seems like I'm still losing as far as rival sociology is concerned, but I'm doing okay for advanced heat management concepts. So I just want to take a quick second here, and I'm going to go grab my tablet just so I can take my notes and see if I'm maybe wasting some science. Because you'll notice, like, I've got a really big boost here, and I've got a pretty sizable lead here. So if I can afford to knock back my science in either of these areas, it would be good for trying to just push us over the edge and be the ones in charge of global science again. Exhausted, but okay. I know the feeling. So, anyways, I cannot believe that it's already been 47 minutes for the broadcast. Hopefully, I will be a little bit more entertaining. But I am going to take a second just to get my my notes. So I'll be back in a second. Okay. Sadly, it is not done charging, and I don't value it enough, or I don't value the information enough to take it off charge, but I did make a note of the values, so I'm just gonna write those down, and we'll use it analog, or we'll do it analog. Assuming I can read my own writing. My God, what's wrong with me? Okay, sorry about this. This is just gonna take a minute to set up. So we've got VEP So the resistance value before... Alright, I clearly have not paid attention to this for a while. But that's fine, I'll work with the numbers that I've got. So last value was 157. So... now it's at 348. Next highest was Exodus. Interesting. Oh, no. Sorry. I wasn't paying attention. So they were previously at 88. They're now at 252. The problem with it's pretty clear that this wasn't just one period of research. I mean, we can know this just from, the fact that we were watching me go multiple assignment periods without checking these numbers. So the drawback here is that I'm averaging out the contributions, where in reality, these could be lumpy. Particularly my own contributions I know are lumpy because I've changed the priority over time. And so this can give me a misleading picture in terms of how quickly I'm actually contributing things. But as I get more readings over and over, I should be able to clear that out. It's actually very tangentially related to an article that I did a first draft of last night. I don't know if anybody is interested in that, but if you are, maybe during, like a break or a lull, or maybe at the end of the stream, I can go over that, or you can just wait for the thing to be released. Okay, so I'm at 292, and that's compared to the Protectorate's 542. Right, but what was it? Where was that before? Okay, so I used to be at 32, now I'm at 292. The Protectorate used to be at 123. They're now at 542. And the Academy was at, I'm going to guess that that's an 80. And they're at 328. So I think it's fair to say I'm probably not going to be contributing enough to this to catch up. But we'll see. And then finally, advanced heat concepts. So here I'm at 1070. Jesus, I need to remember to write this in the right order. So 873 moved up to 1072. And Exodus is the next highest, 871 from 696. Okay, so what does this tell me? So over the period in question, we gained 191 on vacuum electrostatic principles. Compared to the 164 for Project Exodus. So right now, again, assuming that this was kind of constant, we're still outdoing our rivals here. For rival sociology, subtract. So even with the effort that we put in, looks like the Protectorate put in 419 over the time that we did. So I'm going to do something a little risky here. I'm going to roll back on these two. So we're going to do as much as we can on Arrival Sociology to see if we can push that number in my favor. I think this is a misallocation of resources. It would be better to put things towards management research, or it would be better to put more effort into these research efforts. But I do have a little bit of runway for kind of both of these projects. So I'll run the risk just to see if we can get a little bit more. At some point I should also try and engage in some kind of diplomacy with the other factions, but... Okay, now this kind of intrigues me. It seems like there's not a lot going on. We are now able to undertake the Corridor Diplomacy Project. Cooldowns on improving relations between nations are reduced by 20% following diplomatic events we initiate, and increases our control point managed capacity by 10. Okay, so that is a high priority for me.
Public opinion is moving in our direction.
Okay, so I'm going to make that a permanent assignment.
We lost their trail.
Our attempt to neutralize the Protectorate in Mexico failed, and we suffered some negative publicity as a result. I think I'm still going to repeat that. I think it's more likely we're going to get critical failures than we are successes.
You are a shining star. You are a burning sun. And within you burns an eternal flame. When that flame touches another, nothing in this world can stand in its way. Superior Judith Howe, Burn Brighter, Self-Improvement Course.
One cannot simply open a window while on a spaceship. Have any of you watched Avenue 5? This was my bit of relaxation over the weekend. So Algren's might even... I just saw episode 7 of the first season of Avenue 5. And I was incapacitated with laughter. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about this because I do think that there's an angle, like, I know I kind of have that same tiresome angle talking about how I think this is a very good alien invasion game, as in alien invasion participating in sort of the tradition of science fiction stories, you know, going back to War of the Worlds, among others. But one thing I will say about Avenue 5, so it's the lead on it is a man named Armando Iannucci, and he is probably, well, for a while was best known for a British political comedy called The Thick of It, which was also turned into a really good comedy film called In the Loop. Mostly British actors, but I know James Gandolfini had a role in it, which is usually one of the actors who I can mention and people actually know who that is. But he would later go on to making... So I think there was an attempt to do A Thick of It for the US, which failed, and then eventually he was brought on to do Veep, which I am ashamed to admit I have not seen. One of my favorite criticisms I've heard of Veep was that it was too political. But Avenue 5 is his latest. I think it's the first time he's ever done science fiction. Another film that he's done, which was very good, was The Death of Stalin. In any case, Avenue 5 is basically this... It's about this kind of space cruise liner that suffers a malfunction, and it's quickly apparent that essentially everyone involved with this ship is essentially hired because they are very sort of photogenic. They basically sort of play the part well, and that what's actually the people who actually know what to do are usually sort of relegated sort of below decks or potentially incapacitated by this catastrophe. So the thing that's funny about this, by episode, so there's a very good sequence in the 7th episode which might be related to you cannot simply open a window while on a spaceship, and I'll leave it at that. But I think one of the things that I find so interesting about Avenue 5 is I would argue that it's probably one of the more political series I've seen. I mean, I think this is just Iannucci's, like, space. I just think generally that's probably what he's interested in and what he writes about. You know, the death of Stalin, right? You know, a comedy of terrors. It's kind of hard to, you know, not to see that angle in a story like that. But I think if you look at Avenue 5 and essentially, like, I don't know if any of you've read Tom Nichols' stuff on, you know, on sort of the death of expertise and all of that, it's pretty easy to see that coming to the kind of the forefront in Avenue 5. I don't even necessarily think it's all that subtle, but it's very funny. I am enjoying it through that lens, as well as it just being a fun little science fiction story starring, you know, Hugh Laurie. And what are some of the others? Like the actress who plays Nicola Murray in The Thick of It. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. I also don't remember the name of the tall, pale guy who, if you've seen in The Loop, he's one of the advisors for Linton. And if you haven't seen In the Loop, but you do watch HBO shows, he was also the very ghoulish-looking advisor in Silicon Valley. Anyways, he does a wonderful job in that. But anyways, I didn't want to bring up Avenue 5 right up until this one sentence was like, okay, I really need to bring up the episode that I just saw. I like it. I know some people have said that it's a slow start, but I've been very entertained. As such, there is no simple way of releasing the accumulated heat of several dozen human bodies and countless computer systems, reactors, and weapons. But if it is not removed, anyone on board will soon die of extreme heat prostration, while the ship itself will ultimately melt. Conduction, convection, or radiation are the only possible means of thermal energy transfer, and of those, only radiation is currently feasible within the empty vacuum of space. This means radiators, but unfortunately that means bulk, which is itself deeply undesirable. However, liquid droplet radiators appear to be the answer we need. By replacing a solid surface radiator with one that sprays cooling droplets, which are then recaptured and reused across large, thin radiators, we can reduce the mass from approximately 1,300 kilograms to under 100 kilograms. This does require special liquids with a vapor pressure so low that they can resist evaporation before recapturing, but our latest breakthroughs in this field have resulted in droplet supplies that will last several decades before needing to be replaced. Meanwhile, theoretical future nanomaterials will ultimately reduce both the size and the mass of the radiators. The following technologies may now be researched. Mission to the inner planets. The following projects may unlock for us to research in the future. Our current chance to unlock a project once all the prerequisites are fulfilled is also shown. So, potassium heat sinks, sodium heat sinks, lithium heat sinks, molten salt heat sinks. Let's think about our research. So I'm most inclined to Unity movements, even though it is going to be a big draw on my resources. I do hope they make a soundtrack for this available, because I really like this one in particular. Especially when, like, I'm doing a big decision, but... So eventually the goal is going to be Greater United North America. But even United North America is a good start. This one I definitely need to put a little more effort into, given that it's basically like this. So I'm going to wind up losing the race if I'm not careful. We have lost Columbia. What's going on there? Okay, yep. We knew that was coming.
We are in control now. Cleaning things up.
So this one we're going to abandon right away. Looks like we got replaced the second after. All right, well.
The opposition remains in power.
Failed to purge. Oh, okay. Project Exodus got there before we did. So, story of this
The
turn.
less we burn, the longer we will survive. And the less we depend upon burning our natural resources, the fewer territorial conflicts we will suffer. It is forever bewildering to me how few of us can accept this simple concept. Commissioner Kiran Banerjee, lecture at Beyond Fossil Fuels Conference.
Electrostatic propulsion, in which an electrical field is applied to the ions within a propellant in the desired direction of acceleration, is nothing new. Already, we have probes which ionize xenon gas in order to create limited thrust. It is possible only in the vacuum of space for such propulsion methods could overcome neither air resistance nor gravitational pull. However, even though the propellant is ejected some 20 times faster from a classical chemical thruster, the sheer electrical power required to sustain it currently makes it infeasible for larger craft, let alone to achieve takeoff or landing. As new technologies enable greater levels of onboard electrical power, electric propulsion can become more of a reality. However, the likes of gridded ion drives, Hall effect thrusters, and high-efficiency multi-stage plasma thrusters offer great potential for longer, further-reaching missions. Thanks to successful experiments with an array of rare gases and liquid metals as propellants, our researchers have been able to create moderate electrostatic thrust that is sustained for far longer than any known chemical method and uses far less propellant. By building upon these principles, they believe we can not only create faster craft, but potentially also devastating energy weapons, and even devise methods of containing unstable, deadly plasma. So we can now research electrostatic propulsion, and the following projects may unlock for us to research in the future. Our current chance to unlock the project, once all prerequisites fulfilled, is also shown. Ionic dust radiator. So that's another bit of research that I can do for myself. Now the drawback is I'm not really sure what I want to put the effort into. We can try more propulsion. We could also try high energy lasers for attack. Actually, this one works well for me, so I'm going to start there. And we are getting clobbered by the Academy. So I'm just going to give up Arrival Sociology, and we're going to make a push on Unity movements and high energy lasers. The Charlottetown combat.
We still lack support.
Okay, critical failure in the Caribbean states. Well, we can repeat that. Now, the fact remains we still are short on control points. So I think it's time to make some tough decisions. I'm also going to write down my research. Well, there's a few things that I want to do.
What's the op?
So yeah, Nancy Ford,
Standing by.
not much else for her to do. I'm gonna hope that we get lucky with Mexico.
Ready for my mission.
Definitely want to try and
Ready for
angle
my
things to our benefit in the EU. Again, no real hope of doing anything in Mexico. So I think we're just gonna go back to our usual trick and
Removing our enemies.
purge.
What's the op?
Basically, I just want to purge whatever enemies are convenient. So we're already working on Chad. The initiative doesn't exactly help us that much, so I'm not opposed to kicking out the initiative from Botswana. What are my chances? Look pretty good here, actually.
Terminating the opposition.
Okay, and I know we were just here, but I am going to take a second here to write down... Oh, not the council. Well, actually, the council might be helpful. Just so Capella Works gives us... I mean, I'm not going to complain about more research at this point. I don't know if that's going to be enough to push us over the edge, but again, just being able to get some works, just being able to get a little bit more administration on the margins is nice. So, I got to go back to thinking about. I mean, I don't. As much as I don't want to admit it, I think there's only one option available to me, and that's kicking out. Mexico. Right, because like all of these others are oops. Does it not let me? Oop. So basically I just want to kick out the spoils and add it to knowledge, so. I should have done this ages ago, to be honest. Okay, that's a start. And yeah, I hate to admit it, but I am gonna have to abandon Mexico. What's annoying about that, of course, is that I could have avoided ditching the places in Central America, but whatever. We'll worry about that later. We have completed the construction of a new solar collector. Okay. And I've completed the construction of a new social science lab. Well, that's also nice to know. Again, I feel like a bit of a bonehead with this. It does actually have a cost, which I'm not crazy about, but I don't know. I think we just accept our. I think we accept the current state of the world. We've got more power than we know what to do with. Oh, I didn't write down the science. Holy crap, this is not being managed well. Okay. So let's just abandon this entirely. It's probably better for me to just throw my lot in with high energy lasers, to be honest. Yeah, to be honest with you, like at 163, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to catch up with the Academy. Let's give that a shot with Unity movements, and if we fail that, we're just in we're in a decent position for high energy lasers, and maybe we'll work on some more internal projects as well. Now, I am a little worried about the launch a probe mission. I'm not 100% sure how long I should be waiting on Mars. Presumably it will tell me. But what I'm most worried about is what if the probe doesn't work? I suppose I don't have any reason to think that the you know, that mission's not going to turn out, but I kind of would have already thought, you know, we've kind of completed what we wanted for the probe, or we've already done the probe, so anyways, we'll see how it turns out.
Public sentiment is increasingly with us.
Probe controlled by Project Exodus has arrived on Mars. Okay, that's all fine.
Slipped away from us.
Doesn't seem like I can permanently assign someone to that. Okay, we can do potassium heat sinks, and we probably, well, maybe not that one, but okay, more heat sinks. A massive hurricane has struck the Mexico City region of Mexico. The damage is potentially horrific. We may be able to mitigate the damage by directing funds and ops to the area. So I'd rather not spend 20 ops, but this is part of my overall strategy. Okay, happy about that.
We're in control here.
Happy about that.
We failed to take control.
That is maybe a little more surprising, but we've learned that Project Exodus failed a purge mission that was targeting Uzbekistan. There we go, the probe's arrived. The probe controlled by the Resistance has arrived at Mars and completed its scans. We may now construct bases there with the appropriate colonization technology. Monthly resource production for each site is listed below. So lots of good sites, but we're definitely not going to be in a position to work any of that. Okay, the probe will take some time to get to its destination. Once it does, you can found a base there once you've developed the appropriate technologies. So we're already working on building a mine. We've learned that the initiative has failed a purge mission that was targeting Mexico. Well, that sucks. Because again, we're at risk of that the whole way through, but I suppose we just try and take it back once all is said and done. Okay, so it really does seem like the mine is the mission I want to focus on. So here's the deal with that mine. I actually have two sites that I control on the moon. Either one of them I would be happy to have. I'd be happy to have a mine at. This is so not what I want. Yeah, Outpost Mining Complex. So, I do not have 56 boost to build this on Earth. What I would be hoping to do is build this in space, but I don't necessarily seem to have the option to do that. I always kind of thought that if you wanted to use the space resources, right, like the water, the volatiles, and all of that, you would just pay in the form of boost and money. So, if you're able to build this module, you may right-click to place it on an available spot or insufficient resources to... I should also maybe keep an eye on the fact that I need 1.4... So actually, maybe it would be better for me to build the mine on... Maybe it'd be better for me to build the other mine first. Oh, that doesn't really give me any volatiles at all. Well, this is going to be an interesting little pickle. Either way, we're either going to wait for a lot of boost, or we're going to need to find another way of getting the resources we need to be able to build. I would prefer to... I'm going to take a minute. Oh, there wasn't even music. So I will say Algren's, I mean, both are Unity games, and so far as I can tell, there is quite a bit simulated in Terra Invicta, so there's probably more overlap between the two games than than probably meets the eye. I don't know, right? Because I don't know what I'm talking about. Not that that stops people on the internet, but anyways, neither here nor there. Let's just crash into whatever problem we deal with next. I probably need to take a look at the tech tree again. I mean, essentially what I've been trying to do, this is like the longest possible way of doing sort of a tutorial. Don't really have that much in terms of opportunities to investigate returned abductees. We have tried to... he's tired of being abandoned in space, so he's decided to found his own faction to reclaim the Earth. But yeah, under campaign objectives, you know, we've been doing our best, but we haven't really been able to achieve any of those individually. Building a mine in one of our bases, obviously that's something that we have been the frequent crashes of alien ships into the world. That's now I kind of have to believe that that's the explanation. But yeah, I mean, essentially we're just kind of we're stuck with the state of the world, right? It would be nice if we had more. This is ridiculous. When I'm just taking a look at our where's this again? Oh, right. Sorry, this is EU territory. This makes a little more sense. It's because it's a big, not exactly triangle, but I'll call it one. Yeah, I was just like, man, this is a lot more boost than I would be expecting from a normal. So, Llewellyn, I appreciate you following, but do you stream Terra Invicta by any chance? Okay. So for these things you're telling me about the game, how did you learn about them out of curiosity? You learned about them. So I think, based on what you say here, 300 hours of playing the game and watching streams, it would be fair to say then that you were able to decide for yourself how you learned to play the game. And I think it's really cool to be able to have one's choice in terms of how to play the game. So I guess from that, I would have to ask you, do I seem like someone not capable of understanding the sorts of things that you understand? Is there some indication that perhaps maybe I'm just not good enough or smart enough or somehow incapable of learning this game? Because otherwise I have to assume that you're here to be rude, and I would rather not think that of you. I guess what I'm trying to say is that perhaps it's not the best first impression to be coming into a place and telling people how to play their game. At the very least, maybe ask if somebody would like some help, because it is actually something that I have to deal with very frequently in this game, and it is very frustrating, so much so that I kind of want to stop playing this game. So I'm happy to have you here, and I'm happy that you followed, but this is now 2 times. Oh dear. So I've been trying to be nice about that. Are we gonna have a problem? Should we just end this now, or like I'm gonna have to guess there was at least some part of the the delay at play here. But like, come on, please let me play the game. All right, I'm gonna focus on stuff that I want to focus on, and that's to be seeing how hosed I am on research. I really just took Chad as a target of opportunity. Okay, so the thing I'm most interested in are the Unity movements, because we're pretty much throwing everything at that, and the question is whether or not I'm going to be able to overtake the Academy. So we're at 178. Sorry. Yeah, 178 now. My pen's skipping, and I'm not sure if it's because I'm out of ink. I can confirm it's not out of ink. Oh dear. So I actually didn't want to cause another delay. But I'd say like a sixth of my hand is pitch black now. So, I'm sorry, this is not a great way to stream. I apologize. I'm not even gonna try to clean it all up off of my hand. I just want to make sure that I'm not dripping all over the... Jesus. I kind of wish I had a webcam so I could show you what it looks like, but... Okay. So anyways, what I've been trying to do... Again, I'm just going analog this time. So we're at 378. So yeah, I mean, just taking a look... we were at 63 before, so we were basically able to get 115, but they were at 163, so if they're at 378, then essentially... Wait, are they really... Good lord. Yeah, they're doing 215 off of that, so we're... I mean, so I do kind of want to see this thing be realized. I'm not crazy about the Academy dominating the agenda. Okay, well, let's take a look. So we've got high energy lasers. Now this is something that we are sort of in the running for. So again, Exodus is at 139. I'm at 110. I don't even remember what that value used to be at, but in this case here they were able to generate 103 science. Oh, hang on. 73. Jesus, we're getting beaten all across the... All right. So yeah, the tricky part here is I do actually want Unity movements to happen sooner rather than later. But there are a bunch of things that I'd like to have happen as far as research is concerned. Okay, so let's say high energy lasers become a priority. We are actually going to abandon Unity movements. Let's see if we can have... Again, I am sort of hobbling myself with Project Exodus here. On the other hand, we might see a little bit of a rebalancing once Arrival Sociology is selected, so...
Ready.
Okay. I don't think we'll worry about abandoning nations until we have some until we're back to a negative again. And in this case, we're going to get selective in terms of groups we want to kick out. I mean, the initiative hasn't done me any favors, but I think I prefer the idea of purging Bulgaria first.
Targeting the opposition.
Where do you need me?
All right, we're going to get you focusing
Targeting
on
the
Colombia.
opposition.
Reporting in.
Nancy's still working on the Caribbean states. And what else happened here? Okay, Balkan states and Pakistan are now allies. Oops. Mongolia and Pakistan are allies. Iran and Chad have ended their alliance. India and Chad have ended their alliance. Denmark and Spain have ended their alliance. Denmark and the Alpine States have ended their alliance. Germany and Spain have ended their alliance. And Germany and the Alpine States have ended their alliance. I do sometimes wonder whether or not... sorry, I'm just testing my ink-stained hands on my mug to make sure that I'm not leaving evidence. So one of the things that I wonder, obviously when you start the game, it tells you that the servants are the kind of an easier faction to play. They're not the tutorial faction, but they are sort of listed as the one that's easier to win with. And it's kind of easy to see why. I'm assuming that, if you let the game progress naturally, it probably progresses towards an alien victory. And then the idea here is that the other factions need to do something to try and win, although winning kind of depends on who you're playing as. Obviously winning is the initiative is going to be a bit different from, say, Humanity First. I wonder if this is the states that's... Yeah. Thing is, I did just kind of lock everyone up into...
At your service.
I think it's probably better for me to defend
Securing
interests.
our interests.
I'm even willing to keep Canada at some point of risk. It's just the others I don't really think I can stomach the risk for. Or sorry, it's the U.S. that I can't really stomach the risk for. Okay, sorry, what was I going on about? Right, sorry, the servants and sort of kind of default alien victory. But why was I going on about that? I'm not even going to bother. I'm sorry, I'm completely scatterbrained.
Securing our control.
Okay, that's good. We're not going to... I'm wondering why they would get you to repeat a defend mission when you're given such a long time to hold on to it.
You contain multitudes. Every breath you take may contain atoms of Tutankhamun, or Christ, or Asimov. For any human to think of themselves as intrinsically apart from others is absurd. We are, all of us, made from each other. Superior Judith Howell, Infinite You, Self-Improvement Course.
I really like the way... So, the statements... I preferred it when John Donne said this. But I keep forgetting how good the writing for the personalities is in this game. I think somebody was saying before that the different factions reminded them of Alpha Centauri, and I think that's fair. My angle on Alpha Centauri in this game was a bit different, but I don't think it's an unfair comparison. And I think one of the things that I really, really dislike what Judith Howell is saying, but of course that's exactly how I should be feeling when it comes to the leader of the fifth column. And there is something really interesting, I guess, about... So for those of you that have played Alpha Centauri, I think it would probably be fair to say that Judith Howell, the closest connection that you would get would be Sister Miriam Godwinson of the Believer faction. But it's also kind of interesting here to see the self-help author being the... I don't know, like I just kind of like this little twist on the not even trope, but I just kind of like the twist on the way that you normally sort of think of the religious leader of a probably unpopular faction when you think about the demographics of a game. Like, I don't know, I think if you have an audience that plays a game like Alpha Centauri, or anything, or, you know, Terra Invicta maybe less so, but I just generally think you're probably going to have a slightly more secular audience playing that. I could be wrong. You know, I mean, Sid Meier himself plays the organ at his church, so it's not, I don't mean to suggest that the people who play, you know, 4X and just generally complicated strategy games are, you know, a bunch of godless heathens. But I also don't necessarily think it's fair to see a lot of overlap between these things. But with that in mind, I just really like it when you have some thought that's sort of put into these kinds of characters. And I don't know. I wrote but never finished an article on self-help book, and maybe one day I'll publish it. But which, like, I'm just sort of thinking of a couple of paragraphs. I'm like, I know exactly what I'd say to that. Anyways, it is one thing to legislate the world's response to this alien dawn. It is quite another for us, as both individuals and communities, to adapt to what is, in effect, a species-wide existential crisis. Our behaviors will inevitably change now that we know that the sky is a gateway to the unimaginable. Countless organizations will spring up to cater to new technologies, new desires, and new fears. Borders will crumble, and new ones will rise. There will be mobs, there will be cults, there will be despots, and, most of all, there will be countless souls in need of support and guidance. Plotting the likely path of the coming societal change is necessary before we can meaningfully prepare for it. The world's leading sociologists, psychologists, and behaviorists have formed a symposium to understand and predict what is to come. And from there, we can plan effective policies, treaties, laws, means of planet-wide communication, and optimistically, hitherto undreamed of ways to ensure humanity can stand together as one in the days to come. Following technologies can now be researched independence movements. That is the one thing I don't want to have
People
happen.
will come to our side.
But let's see what's going on with aliens have begun. Okay, no, that's fine. We saw that. I do want to see what tech is being researched. Ad Astra, the adoption of society-wide ambitions to dramatically increase humanity's presence in space. What does that enable? Oh, I could have done tech details, I think. This is a requirement for one of the following global techs: directed space research, orbitals, settlement hubs. Okay, that doesn't tell me quite as much as I wanted. So I feel like we need to put something into this. I'm probably gonna fiddle around with these settings a bit, but... Strange behavior. We have new reports of returned abductees in the Vienna region of the Alpine states. Their relatives say that they are behaving strangely and saying the aliens are peaceful and here to help humanity. Our analysts believe that this is a sign that the aliens are attempting to gain influence by shifting public opinion in favor of the servants. Future notifications like this will only appear in the notification queue on the left side of the screen. Alright, well, we definitely know where Irina is going next. We don't need to go that slow, though. So this is potentially a chance for us to complete one of the goals that the game's assigned for us. I have too many projects I want to do.
Our associates are now in charge.
Okay, that was a purge mission. I think we have a control that mission that we want to do there at some point as well.
Our supporters are in place.
And we've got non-sapient alien life forms have been detected in the Hanoi region of Vietnam. So we may want to change a couple of the priorities for the next run. The aliens are indeed peaceful, if a little clumsy. And the initiative failed a purge mission in Mexico, which is maybe surprising because we've more or less abandoned... Well, no, not more or less. We have abandoned the country. Okay, so one thing I want to do is just a quick little bit of window shopping for organizations. I don't think we're going to have much in the way of opportunities for augmenting our followers, but we've got the Siberian Tigers, who are going to cost me money, but they will give me... Okay, that's definitely one that I want to give to Irina. So we will transfer the Romulus Foundation. Oh, damn it! I should have paid attention to what was going on there. See, I suppose the difficulty here now, the ops... So, ops is something that I found in general is quite difficult to get my hands on. I don't really see how this counselor is going to... I don't know, I feel like they're not going to be able to do that much with the extra security and espionage. But maybe that doesn't matter, just so I can get some extra ops income. Then the other question would be, would I be willing to give up so much of my influence in order to gain that? I think for now, I'm maybe just going to sit on it, as bad as that makes me feel. Okay. So, I've got a few decisions to make in terms of how I am handling...
Ready.
So I think investigating alien activity, this is a pretty straightforward one for us, and I think we'd take Irina and send her...
Headed there now. Where to?
I think we're going to send her to go after
Ready to
the
go.
non-sapient... Oh, God.
Gear up.
Where do you need me?
If another hurricane hits, we're in trouble. Kazakhstan and Pakistan are now allies, Indonesia and Pakistan are now allies, and Upper Guinea and the United Kingdom are now allies. Okay, so we really only have one counselor available to do stuff. I could try and control Colombia. That will probably turn out well for us. Alternatively, we can just try and find if anybody we hate is on the list. Again, I'm not crazy about the initiative, but maybe they're not as high on the list as the Servants and the Academy. I guess we were originally going to try and take Bulgaria.
Terminating the opposition.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Oh, damn it. I was meaning to write down the changes to science. Okay, so we are killing it on high energy lasers now, so that's a little bit of good news for us. Unfortunately, it looks like the Academy's starting to run away with it. Okay. So I think this is one I have to have a holding pattern on. And then I'm curious about Unity movements. Because it makes me think that the Academy has started to distribute its points a little bit more evenly. We may not be able to catch up, but I want to at least keep track of the change. And in the end, if I think I've completely lost, then we just put a lot of points into our council engineering projects, because there is actually quite a bit for us to get done now.
We've moved the needle.
It's very interesting to see
We lost their trail.
aliens expand this quickly. It is fair to say this is kind of deeper into the game than I've gotten before. But I'm kind of curious in terms of whether or not we should be expecting, the ability to start taking out some of these assets, or if this is
secure.
that's much better than what happened last time. But yeah, I am slightly curious in terms of, and again, this is just something I'll learn over playing the game a few times over. But whether or not I should be expecting the ability to sort of go and sort of strangle a few of these bases in the cradle, or if I'm going to sort of build up, or if the expectation is that they're able to sort of build out and expand, and then we sort of counterattack. It's an out there question, but do you think there's some randomization in the aliens' patterns? Well, I know from the demo they definitely start in a different location. So yeah, I don't think... So number one, I figure the AI is always going to respond to your behavior. Now, I know that's not the type of randomness that you're talking about, but it would seem to me that there's going to be variation in playthroughs, just because if you take... presumably you're going to play to win, and so your movement or your actions are not going to be identical on each playthrough, and as a consequence the AI is going to have other choices that it makes. But I think closer to the question that you're asking here, I do think just by virtue of the fact that there are different starts for the game, I suspect that there is quite a bit of randomization. The problem here with randomization is to deal with the common use of the term, as opposed to what's probably actually happening in the background of games. Because when you think about probability as in terms of a mathematical study, one of the things that is so interesting about that is that you take something that we normally associate with unknowable, unpredictable occurrences, sort of things that seem to happen without a whole lot of explanation. But what, of course, makes that such an interesting subject of study is that there is actually a very precise structure to this seemingly chaotic, this seemingly kind of chaotic observation from the real world. So one really common thing that comes up in a lot of different cases in game development would be something called Perlin noise. Perlin being, I believe, the name of the individual. There is actually, I think simplex noise is sort of an improved version of it, but I tend to notice that Perlin noise comes up a lot in conversations. And if you think of something like white noise, right? Like black and white dots. You could almost even say, I guess, does white noise wind up just sort of being an even and like just kind of this uniform probability that it'll be like white or black on a given one? I actually don't know too much in terms of how that gets generated. But in the case of Perlin noise, it gets used in a lot of generation for things like you could do landscapes. I think sometimes a lot of textures, things that are designed to look organic, use it. By the way, I'm using Perlin noise as kind of a catch-all for simplex noise, which I know is bad because they are different things. So far as I can tell, simplex noise is basically the dominant choice. Like, there doesn't seem to be an advantage to using the old one. But in this case here, right, you've got this strange idea of randomness, as I think most people will commonly think of it. But you have this idea of picking different kinds of randomness because they lead to more desirable outcomes. And that's essentially why you'll see these particular kinds of these specific styles of random number generation used in the context of gaming, because what you usually don't want is something that feels like it's kind of come out of nowhere. What you want is something that sort of feels like it has some sort of sense to it. So again, I apologize for getting very philosophical on what was sort of intended to be a little bit of a like probably not. I don't think you were intending for me to go this way with your question, but I would say that probably there are a few things that are leading to different behavior on the part of the aliens. One, different starting conditions, which will be randomized. Two, I suspect that there is a set of behaviors that are going to... I think there's going to be a set of behaviors that are preferred on the part of the aliens. So again, they're going to evaluate the position, and they're going to try and make the best decision that they can. When I say the best decision that they can, that doesn't necessarily mean that they play to win. I think it would be fair to say that in most games, if the AI actually played to win, it would demolish us, and we would never have a hope of being able to put up a useful defense. But on top of that, I also suspect that there is probably something of a weighting in terms of the different behaviors on the parts of the aliens, so that in addition to the fact that maybe there's just going to be some sort of function that it's optimizing for, chances are there's going to be the opportunity that maybe it takes a left instead of a right, every 1 in 3 or something like that. I don't usually like using paradox as I usually don't like using paradox as an example, but in this case it's an appropriate one. If you think of something like Hearts of Iron, even if you play with the historical focuses, there is still the chance that ahistorical events occur. It just happens to be in that case that the probabilities are weighted in such a way that outcomes are closer to what would have happened in history. And that's both in terms of combat outcomes as well as the events that pop up. Anyways, and yeah, I mean, that's where Soren Johnson got his start, right? He was an AI programmer for Civilization 3, and so far as I can tell, he programs the AI on all of the games. He's he's the founder of Mohawk, so he's doing Off-World Trading Company and Old World now. Old World being another Hooded Horse game, but yeah, I think that's I believe that is still something that he works in. All right. Assault alien asset mission success. Our assault on the alien life forms in the Hanoi region was successful. We estimate we reduced alien flora and fauna in this region by 32%, but it's likely that some remains. Yeah, well, by 32%, I suspect quite a bit remains.
We found something.
All right, I have learned some useful information from my investigation of the alien activity in the Alpine States. We received a small bonus for our xenology research going forward. Objective complete. We have completed the Investigate Returned Abductees objective. We have news. It is not good news. 2 weeks ago, the son of a senior diplomat in one of our targeted regions disappeared after leaving a party at a remote farm late one night. He reappeared 36 hours later, offering no explanation for his absence. His mother was of course overjoyed at her son's return, but was surprised when he proceeded to take a sudden and uncharacteristic interest in her political ties. One of our field teams received the report and placed the teenager under around-the-clock surveillance. A few days ago, our team followed the teenager to a derelict industrial park where they observed him placing a small package in a dead drop location. Our team moved in, confiscated the package, and detained the teenager. Upon opening the package, we discovered dossiers of information on various local political figures of national and international importance. The teenager offered no explanation of his behavior. This does not appear to be an isolated incident. Several of our other field teams have reported abductees behaving in similarly suspicious manners, again with no apparent explanation. Although it is dangerous to draw conclusions too swiftly, our working theory is that the aliens are somehow exerting influence over humans they come into contact with, and using these thralls to gather information on human institutions and power structures with a view towards establishing control. If this is true, the aliens are not only clandestinely moving against us, but may already be deep inside our society. We need to know more, and quickly. We've now received dozens of similar reports of strange behavior among returned abductees. More worrying still are early indications of shifts in governmental policy among nations with high abduction rates. We recommend immediate analysis. Okay. Jesus. That's going to be a hard one to get back. In fact, they may just defend it right away. Ah!
We are in control now.
We've completely lost Mexico. Okay, we've got all of our work ahead of us. So, let's
Terminating
well,
the
fortunately, a few of these will be
Where do you
easier
need
for me.
Ready for orders. We're taking power.
Acknowledged.
Yoders. Removing our enemies.
Ready to go.
Okay, let's get Nancy working on...
We'll bring this nation to
We
our
still
side.
didn't actually get... Oh no, we do have it on the Caribbean states after all. I've got a few more... Okay, and my favorite, let's see what we are looking at for research. Okay, so we're at 459 for high energy lasers. Exodus is at 395. For Ad Astra, there's 261. So they are definitely moving up at a fair clip. Okay, so on Unity movements, the Academy is moving 140. For Ad Astra, wow, they really are killing it. So they're also contributing 140. And then when we compete with Project Exodus, interesting. So they only moved about 84. So I'm definitely over-investing on... So I'm putting 138 when my rival is putting 84. I'm just going to take a quick second and do a little bit of a... This is going to seem like an out of left field question, but just while I'm trying to do a little math here. Does anybody here know about Facebook advertising? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, that's too small. So I need to find 10 to put into these, otherwise it's not worth. So this is a pretty radical departure for how I normally do this. A little bit. Okay, so here's the first question I have for you. I was under the impression that when you are targeting audiences on Facebook, you would be able to target people who like certain pages, but that option does not actually seem to be available. So, out of curiosity, does anybody know if that's actually something you should be able to do, or has that been removed? I was not expecting the Caribbean states to take up that much. Also, probably should have ditched Chad before I... You definitely can select an interest. I've done that, but I've seen multiple sources claim that you should be able to specify if you liked, X page. So I don't know, I'll say like if Outworld had a Facebook page and I was... So this is not related to my channel for those of you who are curious. But like, I'm just thinking, Outworld, streamer that I've known for a really long time on Twitch. Like if I were to say, okay, well, those people obviously like Twitch. I do stuff similar to Outworld, which I don't. I should be able to target them for advertising. But I've noticed that that does not seem to be the case on Facebook. And the question basically comes down to, do I not understand how the platform works? Or is there something that's changed and am I being misinformed? Hey, Kite, good to see you. Just got home and you have to head to bed, but you wanted to make sure that you stopped by to say hello and enjoy the stream. Well, Kite, I really appreciate that because I know you are a busy, busy guy. And for those of you who do not know, I really love, and I'm sorry, I know some of you are just here for Terra Invicta, but I really want to take a quick second here and talk about how, I want to talk about Kite. Kite is somebody who, I was actually just talking about Outworld. Kite is also somebody who I've known almost as long as I have been on Twitch. He seems to be everywhere in the world doing good deeds, but I was delighted to be able to catch him streaming recently. And there's a couple of things that I really like talking about with Kite. Number one, an incredibly nice guy and very talented. I think one of the things that really impresses me so much is like, one of the things I actually like is that I know a few of you know that I did wind up with an Apple Watch, and this has actually caused me to make the highly questionable decision of taking care of myself. Kite is considerably more fit, and he goes like running with a weighted vest on and all of that. And just generally, he is very skilled at being able to pick up heavy things and put them down again. But I was sort of sharing, as a result of this, I've been using the Apple Fitness Plus app as well. And, it just impossibly like charismatic and attractive people who are like really good, really fit, giving you encouraging words. And like, it's hard to be mad at them. In fact, some of them actually seem to have a background in, in performing arts. So they really picked a very good team, it feels like, for this. But all of this silliness aside, I am convinced they are trying to kill me. And it's kind of like Kite was definitely the first person I was going to mention that, I was doing, I do a lot of HIIT, high intensity interval training. And again, Kite being the incredibly nice person that he is, does not behave the way that I normally would, which is kind of like, LOL, look at this guy trying to better himself. He actually checks in every once in a while and says, hey, how's that going? And I'm like, I'm still convinced they're trying to kill me, but my resting heart rate went up just slightly over the last few weeks, but not quite sure what's going on with that. But just overall, like, the metrics are kind of going in the right direction. But when I'm talking about his talents, somewhere along the way, he started learning piano and can sing, and has actually done a couple of performances on his streams. But on top of all of that, he is also one of the people who I think does some of the best co-op streams that I've seen on Twitch. He's very competent, very good solo streamer, but he is actually one of the people who I think has done such a very good job of capturing the feeling of playing a game sort of co-op with a really good friend on a broadcast. And that is something that is not easy to do, because some of the people that he's done this with are people that I've struggled to do co-op streams with. So overall, I just think Kite is a man of many talents. Again, a really nice person, definitely somebody who I'm always happy to see. And I suspect probably I'm giving him a disincentive to hang out in my channel because I always take this time to talk about him. But I also think it is just a rare treat and privilege to be able to talk about him and sort of share what I like about his stuff with you, that I'm still going to take the opportunity. So if you're not following Kite, I know he hasn't been broadcasting as frequently as he has in the past, but I'd strongly recommend that you follow him and check out his stuff, because he really is worth the follow. We're now able to undertake the Alien Operations Project. So this is one of my quests, allows detection of alien operations. We can update our intelligence estimate about how the aliens regard our faction, and completion may unlock the following technologies and projects for research. So this is one of the reasons why I'm investing very heavily in my operations. Scandal! Prominent figures supporting us in Portugal have been caught in a massive public relations scandal. The scandal is already making headlines across the nation. While the media will eventually lose interest, our cause's image will be tarnished by our association with such scandalized figures unless we can perform damage control. So nothing to be done but ride it out. Have our people resign gracefully to blunt the scandal, or stall, cover up. Nope, we are going to resign gracefully. We can afford the 10.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
I hate him
Superior
so much.
Judith Hull, leading Sunday schoolers.
For generations, laser weapons have been a science fiction staple, but their development for military application has been hampered not purely by their extreme energy requirements, but also thermal blooming. A laser heats the air it passes through, and the subsequent change in air density in turn causes a continued beam to defocus and lose strength. To compound the problem, the beam will bend towards cooler air, which has blighted previous prototypes with poor accuracy. The most obvious response is to further concentrate the beam, but this simply makes the air around it even hotter and thus perpetuates the issue. At last, however, scientists have been able to perfect lasers, which fire in brief, high-powered pulses rather than a sustained ray. While thermal blooming is not an issue in an airless vacuum of space, light, and therefore strength, dissipation over great distances very much still is. As we develop next-generation energy technologies, far more devastating laser weapons for use both within and beyond our skies will become eminently possible. Okay, do principles of space warfare. Military scientists develop doctrine governing the mounting of terrestrial weapon systems on our spacecraft. This is a requirement for the following global text: directed energy warfare doctrine, kinetics warfare doctrine, militarization of space, missile warfare doctrine. This is a requirement for the following faction projects. Patrol vessels. The military science category covers the weaponization of new technologies and the development of both terrestrial and space-oriented military doctrines. I could have also done space tourism, but I don't feel like that's really worth it. Still waiting to just try and unify as much of the Western Hemisphere as I can. We're now able to undertake the Ionic Dust Radiator project. Allows construction of the following ship components: Ionic Dust Radiator. We'll take a look at all of this when we're on our next assignment for counselors, because I also want to see how much science I need to dedicate for some of these other tasks. Ruby Byrne was supposed to be done with this life, yet, as the polite man with a goatee sitting across the table from her calmly explains, it's not as simple as that. Ruby Byrne accumulated certain debts and expectations in the underworld, and simply working for the Resistance now hasn't changed that. Nevertheless, it wouldn't be anything too big, nothing to worry about, just a small favor for old time's sake. So Ruby Byrne doesn't do that kind of work anymore. Nothing happens, 32%. Firebomb, 65%. Or assassinated. Agree to smuggle some unsavory contraband during Ruby Byrne's travels. So 50%, gain a bunch of money, inequality in Mexico, failure, detained in their current location for 4 missions, agree to remove an inconvenient local politician from the scene. I'm not that... democracy dying in the UK is probably a problem. Okay. Very high chance of failing a daring heist. You know, this is going to sound crazy, but here's the way I think about this, right? So I don't want to lose up to 3 of the non-unique orgs. So we've got 32% chance that nothing bad happens. Or 25% chance that something good happens. I don't want... I definitely don't want something bad to happen in Mexico. And, I don't know, I feel like... savaging the United Kingdom. United Kingdom's something presumably that I might be able to take advantage of. So in this case, I'm kind of have to accept that Ruby Byrne's probably going to wind up detained. But it seems to me that if we're going to go for a low probability positive event, let's like swing for the fences and let's see if we can get the success, or better still, the critical success. Despite Ruby Byrne's immaculate planning, her skills have become rusty after her time away from the underworld. She and her associates were captured on the scene and turned over to local authorities. While Ruby Byrne's criminal contacts hold no grudge for the failure, she will be stuck in jail for some time. Now, we may be able to break her out. But yeah, in this case here, it was just more,
Public opinion is moving in our direction.
I didn't want to get burned. Or like I didn't want the stuff that I... Oh man. We had a 1, but apparently the success chance has only gotten worse. But yeah, so it just seemed to me like if we were going to go, like, why not go for the bonus, right? Large wildland fire has broken out in the Lisbon region in Portugal. The fire is threatening some inhabited areas. We may mitigate the damage by sending ops teams to the area. 20 is a lot to pay at a time I can't really afford it. So in this case, we will say let it burn.
Our people have taken control.
Okay, happy to take more of Mexico. And yeah, we know we can't do anything with Ruby right now, so...
We still lack support.
I'm going to say continue there because I may change around some of my priorities. Okay, first up, let's just see where we're at. Okay.
Acknowledged.
Can't do anything with Ruby right now.
Standing
Irina
by.
may be able to break them out. I don't recall. Okay, so apparently because it's not enemy hands, that doesn't apply. Fair enough. We are going to purge
taking power.
the initiative.
Standing by for orders.
Now, let's start... I'm a little worried that it's not gonna be enough to abandon some of these other regions, but we'll definitely leave Chad. Yeah, not even close. So yeah, Colombia and Bulgaria, but again, I think we're short of what we actually need. Ah, that's really close. I think I'm gonna eat the loss to influence for a bit.
Putting our people in place.
What's the op?
Okay, now the numbers that I'm dreading. So the Academy's up to 434, so that means that they moved up 100 and... wow, 173. For Unity movements, they are at 959. So for that, they moved up. I find that hard to believe. Yeah, 173 again. So essentially what I'm looking at here, or at least as far as I can tell, if they're generating 173 a turn, it takes about 2 weeks. So essentially I need to be generating about 12 a day to make this stuff work out. This is curious. I'm assuming this must be because Ruby is detained. So, anyways, looking at what's going on with the Academy, I mean, so this is terrifying, right? If they're generating 173 a turn. Sorry, not 173. So, but basically, I need to be generating about 13 points of science a day, which, you know, if I put everything into one, I can probably do it, right? Oh, actually, that's a lot better than I thought. So this would allow me to catch up with the Academy. But as you can see, that's not really an ideal circumstance for me. Now, I do seem to be pushing ahead as far as Principles of Space Warfare is concerned. Right now, it looks like it's 98 to Humanity First 61. So I'm going to do... I don't think this was a full 2 weeks. But we're about 2 points above. This may put me behind. But yeah, so I think at this point, it's okay. I think what I'll do is I'll maintain Principles of Space Warfare. I'm going to give up on Ad Astra and Unity movements and maybe hope that we can catch up on the back end. But maybe I also want to take a look at the state of the world and see why the Academy is doing so well. I'm assuming it's probably because they own Europe and a couple of other regions. But again, there's not a whole lot to be done about it. I'm definitely used to throwing my weight around on the research, but I've definitely met my match. Okay, what about science? Our adversaries have conducted a crackdown on our legislature control point in Bulgaria. I thought we already gave up Bulgaria, but...
Public sentiment is increasingly with us.
So one thing that I should be really worried about is the fact that the servants aren't trying to drive the global research agenda, which means that they're probably putting a lot in terms of their own operations. I guess I see where the Academy is getting all its research from now. But again, if we're getting 378 for science, we should be... I feel like we should be really dominating the research agenda. Maybe it is just the fact that I'm doing my ops. Okay, so we're gonna want to go after Chile. I can live with the coups and the rest.
Targets lost.
Yeah, I probably wasn't expecting losing Ruby to be as disruptive as it's turned out to be, but there's not much I can do about it, right?
We're in control here.
Okay, so this probably... The thing that worries me about abandoning Mexico again is that I'm pretty sure the Protectorate's just going to swoop in and take those,
We
take
were
those
unable
areas
to
from me
establish
again.
control.
But, again, I don't really have that much as far as options are concerned, right? So, let's go... We'll keep these going.
Where to?
Nancy can investigate.
On the way to the target site.
Ready.
I'm here.
Actually, maybe we could get Irina to... We'll get Irina to
We'll see what we
investigate.
can find.
Ready for orders.
And Nancy can
At
keep
your service.
focusing on
Ready for my mission.
Colombia.
Where to?
And again, I'm going to hold my nose, but we will abandon Mexico. And our beloved numbers game. Okay, so let's get some real numbers about what we're working on here. So for space warfare, we're at 179 compared to Humanity First's 146. So that's a number I should pay attention to. That means that they moved up by 85. So if we were at 98 before, so we're actually just shy of where we need to be with that. Get another read on what's going on with the Academy. So they're now at 601. So we are seeing 167 and 1,126. Well, okay, I don't need to do the exact numbers. The division is roughly where I want it to be. Although maybe we don't worry about the defoliants at this point. God, alien operations is going to be done in like a day.
We're winning their hearts and minds.
So I've been working on the EU for a bit. Let's see what that's
We lost
translated.
their trail.
Oh, interesting. That is definitely a very attractive number.
Recon complete.
I think we're still going to be... So, to be honest with you, I think we're going to be mired in the Western Hemisphere for a bit, which has its advantages. What I would like to do, if I can, as far as the terrestrial operations are concerned, is if we can push out, like, the Academy and the servants from the really valuable nations. We obviously can't eradicate them, but at least, kind of directing them towards nations that aren't quite going to have the same sort of influence in terms of their ability to get research done. But again, we can't really credibly do that if we're still struggling to kind of keep essentially, keep kind of North America together. Anyways, I've learned some useful information from my investigation of the alien activity in Chile. We will receive a small bonus to our xenology research going forward. We have lost something in Colombia. Not great, but not...
We still lack support.
Also not the most important task. I think I'm just going to make this a permanent assignment until they actually deliver. And I think Irina's going to pay a visit to the
Acknowledged.
new Exodus site.
Targeting their position.
Where do you need me?
What's the op?
Acknowledged.
They'll be released March. So again, I don't want to get too obsessive with this breakdown, but so we move to 778 for the Academy. So that's these numbers can't be right. It seems like their research is increasing even more each turn. But Humanity First went from 146 to 229. So that's about 83, which is roughly where we saw it before, and that's the reason why we bumped the number up for us. So I'm gonna stick with the division that we've got right now. This essentially means that the only person who's really moving around the world at this point is going to be Irina Borisova. But I'm okay with that. Like, it's... What's going on here?
Public sentiment is increasingly with us.
They slipped away from us.
Diplomacy has its place, but if you don't go into every situation prepared for the absolute worst case scenario, you might as well turn up wearing nothing but a smile. Commander Fiona Ayawade, leaked training video.
The wild expanse of space invites humanity to stake its claim, but who can say what resistance we might face in the years and decades ahead, whether from the threats as yet unknown or from each other. It is territory that will at times require defense, as will any pioneers we send forth into it. In time, we will doubtless develop new types of weapons specifically designed for space combat, and without dependence upon cumbersome, finite, and volatile ammunition stores. In the shorter term, however, the most practical approach, for which we now have a detailed and proven schematics, is to modify our existing weapons for effective use in space rather than on land or sea. There is much to consider, both practically, the effects of low and microgravity on velocity and targeting, safety of usage, armoring, and bureaucratically. We must establish not only the most potent methods of space warfare, but also the rules of space warfare. The apportioning of borders, the rights surrounding unmanned objects such as satellites, the usage of non-kinetic attacks, damage to the environment of space, and that destruction of a ship or station might cost dozens, even hundreds of human lives. And so the doctrine now brought before us concerns not only how to effectively fight in space, but also the complex conditions of do so. Should probably start taking some notes on some of these lines. So a lot of different doctrines. I don't know if I'm really equipped to know. So where were we? Kinetics. Yeah, requirement for railguns. Militarization of space. Completion may unlock the following technologies and projects. Marine assault unit, marine platoon. Yeah, to be honest, like I'm sort of looking at these techs up here and I'm like, these are shorter to research and probably a bit friendlier. But that also kind of means that we keep sticking around in the lower tech. Anyways, let's see what this does. So advanced carbon manipulation, our forays into nanotechnology continue with the creation of new carbon allotropes, composite armor, graphene batteries, chemical rocketry, reusable rockets. This will probably lower the boost costs for things, so that may not be a bad idea. We could also go for augmented reality. I wonder. I think I'm going to do advanced chemical rocketry in this case. So this is always concerning.
We are in control now.
Okay, that's not a bad place to be.
Our presence is growing.
Alright, we're already losing points, so we will abandon Colombia. Although we can at least adjust some of the... Well, it's nice we're getting the boost, but I obviously want to use the boost for something else. How are we on research? We can actually probably roll back a little bit on this, but I'm just going to make a note of the 25. Okay.
Your orders?
Nancy. What do we do with you? We could try, finally try and make our move on Cuba. Well, why not? Well, yeah, that's why not.
Bringing them to our side.
Ready to go.
I'm here.
I think I'm going to keep... This is not really the best use of this... Actually, it has gone down to 0 at this point, so I may want to reconsider the move.
Standing by.
Where do you need me?
Yeah, we need to investigate the counselor first. It's not really that great of a chance, but... alternatively, I kick out the academy from South America.
Removing our enemies.
I think I prefer that
Ready
option.
for my mission.
So, as far as stuff to build here, I don't know, like, obviously there's the science stuff that I can build, but that's just going to put more of a drag on my boost requirements. I guess one of the big challenges, I don't really hate all of these options. There are actually some decent ones here. But it just seems to me that this winds up being more of an expense than I really want. There's actually one thing I want to check.
I would never want to belong to anyone.
YC Gammon, thank you very much for the follow. Okay, so space dock is not actually that expensive for us to research, so maybe I should have been working on that before. No, hang on, but that's a... we've had that option. We've just been waiting for the sort of tutorial to tell this. Now this is a bit weird to me, to be honest. Because it would seem to me that having the space dock makes it more likely that I'm going to be able to build a mining base on the moon. Cool. I'm going to quit for tonight. I think actually, you know what? No, I don't like penalizing people for people. Why is it that people think that streamers are either incapable or just don't want to learn about the game the way everybody else does? Like, do you go to every stream and assume that people don't, like, know how to play the game? Do you prefer Twitch plays Terra Invicta? I just don't understand why this has to be the first thing that people say whenever they come in. Because it makes me say that I don't want to do Terra Invicta anymore, and that's a real shame, because I actually really appreciate that Hooded Horse gave me a key for this. So hopefully we can come over that introduction, or overcome that introduction, but man, it's really a drag tonight. I was having such a good time. So I think what I'll do is I'll go up to the point for Ruby Byrne to be let out of prison. And
the people will come to our side.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll go over the article. Back in action, Commander. They didn't learn anything from me. Alright, project complete. Alien operations. Unhelpfully, domestic law enforcement tends to close investigations once apparent abductees return, and thus it has fallen to our local operatives to follow up the many rumors of erratic or aberrant behavior amongst the reappeared. Concerningly, their investigations and interviews strongly corroborate these reports, and indeed suggest that the true purpose of the alien abductions is something other than mere research and experimentation. We do have some new understandings on alien activities and how humans may resist them. Allows detection of all alien operations. We update our intelligence estimate about how the aliens regard our faction. Updated the codex with new information. Enthrall elites, enthrall public, enthrall... Oh, this is... Okay, so I did not know this. I did not know that the codex doesn't give you all the information at the start. And the following projects may unlock for us to research in the future. Our current chance to unlock a project once all the prerequisites are fulfilled is also shown. Yeah, no, I mean, like, okay, so the one thing, I appreciate people sticking up for me in that too. I never want it to be where somebody gets, like, completely crapped on for coming in. But yeah, YC Gammon. The big challenge that I have, I do like playing strategy games, and obviously I stream games without a camera. So one of the things that I enjoy the most is I very rarely will ever have a chance to say that I stream a game and people watch me for my skill. What I have gotten, particularly for some of the games that have been the most popular for this channel, have been that people enjoy seeing someone learn a game, and that it can actually be a gateway for them to sort of learn the game themselves. So for instance, I'm still doing the tutorial from the base game, and I haven't unlocked certain technologies because I want to try and do things in the order that the game says that I should. So this is, for instance, one reason why I think it's weird I haven't built a space dock yet, because it would seem to me that that's a really good way to put a mine on. But the thing is when you don't have a camera, there isn't a way for you to express any kind of an idea except through speech. And so rhetorical questions or thinking out loud is a really good way of conveying that. And the drawback is that the nature of the internet is such that there can be no mystery. Because of Google, essentially everyone is going to run and immediately give an answer to anything, even if it's not really wanted. And one of the challenges is, as much as I love Terra Invicta, for 2 or 3 weeks straight now, it has just constantly been people telling me things I usually already know about the game, and it becomes very difficult to stream the game in that environment, because it really I think people can sort of say for the couple of broadcasts, it takes me a long time to sort of recover from that sort of stuff. So I appreciate you taking that in stride. I am actually going to be wrapping up reasonably soon anyway, but that's kind of where that's coming from. I just sort of feel, because there's a lot of comments on that, I figured I should at least address that as well. But anyways, assuming you're still around and you haven't decided that this is a complete waste of your time, like I said, thank you for taking that in stride. So I am going to take a look at some of the new codex entries. And objective complete. We have completed the research alien operations objective. The situation is worse than we had feared. All of the countries with high abduction rates are now showing aberrant political trends. We have tracked rapid swings towards pro-alien views in ways that are extremely concentrated by geography, spreading in ways that more closely resemble infectious disease vectors than communications networks. These changes are all being accompanied by sharp shifts in policy, with key officials and leaders either being replaced with pro-alien figures, or more disturbingly still, abruptly changing their beliefs and publicly expressing conciliatory views towards the alien presence on our planet. Multiple independent reports have noted sudden and uncharacteristic behavioral changes in these individuals, describing them as aloof, phlegmatic, and disinterested in any issues other than human-alien relations. None of our sources were able to offer any explanation for these changes. In the absence of any real evidence, attempting to explain these developments is difficult. We have found ourselves falling back on theories drawn not from field reports, but from science fiction. At present, our best guesses are as follows. 1. The aliens are capable of mind control, perhaps via telepathy, a parasite, or some form of advanced technology. 2. The aliens are replacing abductees either directly, using some sophisticated method of disguise, or via clones. Whatever the explanation, we must act quickly to attempt to slow the growth of their influence. Earth is engaged in a shadow war, and at present, the aliens are winning. We have activated the alien threat monitor. It is viewable on the alien tab or the intel screen. So we will take a look at this before we wrap up tonight. Makes total sense. Honestly, incredibly optimized playthroughs are fun to watch. You like to see at least some struggle and not min-max to the extreme. It's totally fine. But yeah, like this is the big thing. I tend to find most games that I play are infinitely more interesting when you bounce back and forth. And just more importantly, like I have held off on playing Terra Invicta on my own. I have played a little bit of it on my own, but like for the most part, I have been holding off playing this game except on stream, because there's only ever going to be one time where I'm able to discover something for the first time, and then for the follow-up, like there will be a point where I've got hundreds of hours in the game and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I know this game pretty well, and at that point then I get to do some like weird and wonderful things where I'm like, okay, what if I only ever take Cuba and I create the Cuban space program, and this is how we're going to play Terra Invicta this time. But set our goals, interesting. Okay. Now that we know that the aliens are bent on infiltrating human institutions for their own ends, controlling individuals and entire societies to serve their own purposes, for some time now, debates and discussions have been taking place amongst our members as to what our response should be. It is easy to call ourselves resistance, but what are we resisting, and how? So, I am curious about the Defend the Earth project. Let's just catch up with... Oh, sorry. New objective: research alien movements. Our long-range tracking technology has proven adequate for observing the stream of alien spacecraft moving around the solar system. However, all of our attempts to track alien movements on Earth itself have so far ended in failure. To effectively counter the spread of alien influence, we need to be able to detect individual alien infiltrators here on the surface of the planet. Research alien movements when it becomes available. One thing I really like about the angle that Terra Invicta has taken on the alien invasion, both the story but also the game, is when you're playing the Resistance, and I'm assuming that there may be analogous events inside of for the other factions. I really like the fact that you get this sense of a situation spinning out of control. It's not just enough that you have sort of mechanics that might be angled against you. So I always keep making the analogy to Twilight Struggle, but I definitely feel like Twilight Struggle was an influence on this game. In Twilight Struggle, it would be fair to say that the circumstances favor the Soviet Union quite heavily in the early game, and that part of playing Twilight Struggle sort of seems to be either as the Soviet Union to just crush the West early, and then as far as the West is concerned, like the US player, essentially what you want is to be able to survive long enough to be able to get to the end game where, you know, Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Pope John Paul II saved the world. Basically, you know, a little bit like history. The circumstances are much more favorable to U.S. victory. So I'm, of course, speaking in broad strokes. For those of you that haven't played Twilight Struggle, by the way, if you know someone who has it, apparently the rule is that whoever's the more experienced player plays as the Soviet Union, so they can just obliterate the U.S. player, and the U.S. player learns by losing, and then you know, and then you just do that to someone else so you can feel better. But yeah, so for a while when I first played this, probably more so the demo than the base game, I think it would be fair to say that I definitely got the feeling that, yeah, there's sort of structural elements that are going to make it more or less challenging to win the game. So again, if you're playing the servants, chances are you have an easier time than if you're one of the factions that's resisting the alien forces. The Academy seems to start in a very strong position, but then they have an event that will disrupt a lot of their control points. And again, that's very similar to how Twilight Struggle tends to play out. It's a very good game, by the way. If any of you haven't tried it, I know we're going to be coming on to the sale season soon. So that is definitely one, alongside Terra Invicta, of course. You know, got to get the hooded horse angle in. But it's by Asmodee. Asmodee owns this now. I think Playdeck was anyways, a GMT game. It usually tends to get a pretty steep discount whenever it goes on sale. There's also a follow-up by Volko Runke, who used to work for the CIA, called Labyrinth: The War on Terror. It's a similar style of game, but focused more on modern conflict. There's actually something about the box art comparing the two that I think is really interesting, but maybe that's a conversation for another time. But what I didn't appreciate as much about Terra Invicta, and I'm really liking about the Resistance, at least, is, again, the fact that there's more that's getting revealed. So we don't necessarily have all the information at the beginning, that as we are continuing to go through these branches, we're learning more about the alien invasion. We're learning more about how screwed we are. And that definitely creates a very different feeling. You do feel like you're sort of kind of in this last-ditch effort to save the world. And this, again, I'm going to sound like a salesman for Twilight Struggle, but this is also true for Twilight Struggle. So one of the things, if you've ever played it, you'll know that when you look at your hand, you're like, oh, there's nothing I can do with this. I'm convinced I'm going to lose. But your opponent feels that. And of course, how else would you describe the Cold War, right? If you want to make a game about the Cold War, shouldn't both players feel convinced that, you know, the enemy is about to win and that, you know, the next move could be the last? You know, it's a very, there's some very clever design going on inside of that game. And, you know, again, this is a different experience. This is a digital game. And in this case here, there's sort of information that's been withheld from me. And it's, you know, through the process of investigating the alien threat, we're learning more about their tactics, and every single thing that we're learning tells us more about how outmatched we are. It's one of these things where it's not, this game is great as a series of mechanics, but I really like the fact that, again, you know, I think there's something that it's saying in terms of the way that it's sort of done the alien invasion, the way that it works out in terms of mechanics. And now I'm sort of appreciating that there's almost this, it almost feels a little bit like a role-playing element in terms of how I feel about the situation and the events that are emerging. So anyways, I'm going to hit continue in a second, but I want to clear out at least a few of the deal. Okay, that's fine. Okay, good. We're now able to undertake the Defend the Earth project. Good to know. Violent revolution has overthrown the government in Zimbabwe, and we have detected a new alien fleet docked at the alien station Able. Yes, I have. So when I have broken my self-imposed embargo, I do play the initiative quite a bit, and I think they're a really interesting group of people. I definitely have not gotten this far as the initiative, so I'm the one bit of story that I'm most interested in for the initiative is how they pivot from making the most of the crisis to enrich themselves, but to do so in such a way that they can still address the alien threat. Because it doesn't necessarily matter if you become the king, if in the end, you know, the invading army comes in and topples you over. Because it's pretty clear that the initiative are not making deals with the aliens. You know, that's more an academy and servants deal. Okay, I think we already read this out, but I'll read it again. We know that the aliens are bent on infiltrating human institutions for their own ends, controlling individuals and entire societies to serve their own purposes. For some time now, debates and discussions have been taking place amongst our members as to what our response should be. It is easy to call ourselves the Resistance, but what are we resisting, and how? We are now able to undertake the Defend the Earth project. Increases our control point management capacity at 25, so that's an absolute must, and spins off a new org to the faction pool, also grants 100. Okay, so this is like the most important. Where on earth are you? Oh, here we are. So I'm wondering, maybe we need another round of counselors. This panel represents our intelligence section's best estimate about the degree to which the aliens regard our faction as a threat. It is based on our monitoring of pro-alien groups and visible alien activity in the solar system. We believe hostile actions against the aliens or their proxies on Earth and or large visible space presence increases their concern about us, and we may expect the aliens to retaliate against our interests on Earth and in space should the alert monitor reach the maximum level. They may also lose interest if we avoid opposing them or their proxies on Earth directly for a time. Our analysis emphasizes this is an imperfect estimate. We will correct our estimates when the aliens take direct action against us or by speaking with one of them directly. Oh man, I cannot wait for the first encounter with the... Because, like, again, I'm sorry I keep referring to Independence Day, but it is a very charming movie in its own way. The first meeting with the aliens, to learn about their intentions, that's exciting. Okay. Well, that's a lot more information than I was expecting. Not that that's that's a human saying that. But again, I do really like that finale for that character. Can't stay up anymore. I should be wrapping up pretty soon. Actually, Takri, if I were to do the article right now, is that something that you could get through, or should I just do that another time? Of course, if you're heading off, I should just say goodnight as well. But you can stay a bit longer? Okay.
We're taking over.
Let me just I'll get to the next counselor run. I think that's going to be in 1 day game time. So we can repeat that mission in Jordan.
We've removed some threats.
Cool. And that sucks, but we've gotten through that before. We may just wait out, we may actually just wait it out for our, okay, I lied, it was the 16th that we needed. You know, Burke, I don't know which species is worst. You don't see them effing each other over for a goddamn percentage. That's Ripley speaking. But yeah, I do normally only go 3 hours, so this is not a bad place to wrap it up. But it's pretty obvious what we're doing. So in terms of the Defend the Earth mission, that actually lines up really well with the fact that we've been struggling to get a bit more of a hold on... on North America and expand out from that. So hopefully we won't have to be giving up Mexico as frequently once we get our control point boost from that. For those of you who are just here for Terra Invicta, I will be back with that for a week. But what I'm going to do here, I've sent this off to 2 developers whose opinions I regard very highly. This actually also winds up being a really convenient way for me to find someone to host tonight. But I actually wanted to try and run a couple of... I wanted to try and do this on stream as well, for the simple reason that when I'm trying something new in terms of writing. I'm trying to do something a little bit shorter. But I also preferably would kind of communicate the... like, what I'm trying to do is I'd like to have the same level of I'd like to have the same depth of analysis, but maybe just be a little bit more concise in terms of how I write it. So the estimate that that WordPress is giving me for this article is 3 minutes. Now, this is going to be a little bit of inside baseball, so if you do not follow sort of game dev Twitter or any of that stuff, some of the problems that are brought up here are probably not going to make a lot of sense. But essentially, this is here just because I got a couple of other people who are potentially going to review this, and they are experts. What I'm going to try and do here for myself is to read the article out aloud, which is good for me, and then hopefully this will also give me some feedback in terms of whether or not this is conveying the point that I want it to the broader audience. And I appreciate Decree staying up a little bit later for me to subject you all to the writing. So, more game data is less. More game data is now making us dumber. More data is normally a good thing, but the way it is currently shared has turned that strength into a weakness. The problem is selection bias, but it is amplified by the arrival of the game development influencer. The trend can be stopped by a greater willingness to share and discuss failure. What is the specific problem? Most articles include a disclaimer that the insights are based off of a single case and so may not be representative. Releasing data this way is fine, and the expectation is that the culture of sharing data will reveal general patterns. This promise does not materialize. The qualities that get an audience to read an article are similar to the ones that will get them to play a game. Readers are more likely to read about successful games purely as a function of the qualities of the team that made it. This reinforces readers' existing biases towards success stories over... Sorry, actually, I'm going to just take a second here and edit that. Also, it should be stories. Let's try that again. I'm actually going to read it off the top just so I can get the flow. If I have to do some more edits, though, I'm not going to read from the start. So, more game data is less. More game data is now making us dumber. More data is normally a good thing, but the way it is currently shared has turned that strength into a weakness. The problem is selection bias, but it is amplified with the arrival of the game development influencer. The trend can be stopped by a greater willingness to share and discuss failure. What is the specific problem? Most articles include a disclaimer that the insights are based off of a single case and so may not be representative. Releasing data this way is fine, and the expectation is that a culture of sharing data will reveal general patterns. This promise does not materialize. The qualities that get an audience to read an article are similar to the ones that will get them to play a game. Readers are more likely to read about successful games purely as a function of the qualities of the team that made it. This reinforces readers' existing biases towards success stories over failure and having their prior views confirmed instead of challenged. Writers also face biases that overreport success. Articles with data are popular, and they are a good way to boost one's status as an influencer. Failure calls into question the capabilities of the author, and so the authors of these articles face an additional incentive to report on success beyond the audience's preferences. Worse still, selective data creates a credibility problem for analysts that present reasoned but not empirical analysis that is outside of a consensus view, since these articles are likely to be dismissed as just opinion. We have done better. The problem is not specific bad actors. If it were, the answer would be simple: find better analysts and do better analysis. The problem is the set of incentives facing readers and writers. So far, this article has focused on the conclusions that come from an aggregate of selected data, but there are alternatives. Jake Burkett and Simon Carlis have done surveys that, despite being convenient samples, align with the glimpses we've gotten into the population of games on Steam through leaks. Analysts have been able to draw insights from these surveys, and so the question is more about understanding the limitations of the data we are working with, particularly when they amplify cognitive biases. The solution may rest with the readers of games analysis. Analysis should be subject to scrutiny, especially when it will be informing business decisions. It is a good habit to raise questions when it aligns raise questions when an article aligns too well with our priors, lest we be prioritizing confirmation over information. Hard questions we should ask. Game demos are a good example of the kind of consensus view that deserves more scrutiny. Game demos used to be popular, and then developers decided that they were not worth the effort. Demos are back, but the original reasons against producing them remain. There are a number of articles reporting data on new wish lists from releasing a demo during a Steam event. These articles do not necessarily isolate the effect of the demo itself from other factors such as the game itself or participation in the Steam event. More importantly, the original criticisms of demos remain unaddressed. It is true that the marketplace has changed since demos were last popular. Many more games are being released, and games are struggling to get attention. It is also true that there are more tools to enable discovery and experimentation, such as broadcasting, both on Steam and streaming platforms, wishlisting, and refunds within 2 hours of play. One thing that hasn't changed is the fact that resources must be diverted from the final product to produce a demo. Demos can hurt a game's sales. At a minimum, demos are a tool for only a certain type of game. This is not a conclusion that follows from the wider reporting on demos, which is focused exclusively on successful uses of demos. In fact, there hasn't even been any follow-up analysis to estimate how well the increased wish lists translated into sales. Demos are just one example of the problem. Readers should be willing to confront the uncomfortable and unfamiliar, just as influencers should be better guides through the challenges of aggregating the individual reports. Otherwise, we will continue to share and focus on high-profile successes. It is analogous to using Minecraft, Hollow Knight, and Stardew Valley as a baseline for expected sales of an indie game. So there's actually quite a few just writing problems with that. I probably should have held off on writing that article or reading that article out until I at least gave it a pass or two on like basic grammar and sentence structure, because I definitely made some edits. But is it at least clear what I'm trying to talk about in that? Or does my effort to try and keep this thing under 750 words completely destroy the ability to make the point? I'm going to try and find someone to host while we chat. Oh, well, there's quite a few people streaming tonight. I think I'm going to host Outworld because he's been having a really good time. He's been having a really good time with Medieval. Sounds good. Need some TLC. Interesting take, though. Do you feel early access falls into the equation? Not really. Early access can be successful. So the specific problem that I'm trying to address here is the fact that... So here's an anecdote. So this is one of the examples that of where I would normally have written a larger article rather than a shorter one. Yeah, okay, so this is really interesting, actually, because the demos are just an example. And I actually think players probably really like demos. I think game developers should be very skeptical about demos. But here's an example from the local game dev community that came out. Actually, I'll bring the article back up. So there was a guy who was about to release a game. I'm not going to say what the game is, not because I don't want you to go out and support it, but the thing is that what I'm saying could be perceived as being unkind, and I just generally dislike attaching... Like, the point of this is to illustrate a larger problem, not to, like, crap on the guy. So, it's a tricky one, right? Like, you don't... Like... I don't think anybody's going to rush out and buy the game as a result of me giving this example, and so that's why I'm going to hold the game back to myself. But he presented his game. It was interesting. I think one thing that had come up, somebody suggested that he should include a level editor because that was something that was generally like popular for these kinds of games, and it would be something that would give people a reason to keep playing it. And, he sort of said, I don't have time to do something like that, which fair enough. And then I think somebody asked, is like, what are you going to charge for this? And I think he said something like $20. And like, I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, that seems like a very aggressive price when I can get like FTL for less than that. And I sort of, I mean, I was just new to the local game dev community when this had come up. So I very gently asked, could you maybe tell me a little bit about how you came to that number? And then like he gave, I compared it to X, Y, or Z game. And I was like, I'm thinking it's like, okay, but you're not really those three games. Like I'm not so sure. But like, it was also really clear that he was not going to move from that. And I didn't really feel like, in the end, it's his game, right? He gets to decide what his labor is worth, and the player gets to decide whether or not they're into that, right? So I don't necessarily like seeing people about to get hit by the train, but on the other hand, it's also really important not to like nanny them, because I sure as hell don't know how game development works, and who the hell am I to tell this guy that he's wrong, right? But needless to say, I wasn't entirely convinced by the valuation. But in the later conversation, I actually got a little bit more of an idea about where this value came from. And essentially, like, he'd worked out what his student loans were, and he sort of, I think he'd somehow gotten into his head that if he could get on Steam, he quote unquote only needed to sell like 1,000 copies or whatever. And at that price, he would like totally clear out his student loans. And like, there's a side of me that says, like, this is a totally reasonable ambition, right? Who doesn't want to pay off their student loans? Who doesn't want to, to be able to do something like that? And yet, or maybe it wasn't 1,000, because like if it's $20 and like 1,000, then 20,000 for student loans, which, I mean, hey, great if you're only do the 20,000, but it was probably he expected more sales or whatever. But anyways, the thing that I was sort of thinking to myself was like, it is completely legitimate to want to do that. That is a great, like, getting an education is a good thing. Wanting to pay the bills is a good thing. I cannot complain with anybody having this as an ambition. But on the other hand, I also think to myself and say, how many jobs can you get in the world where you work for like 4 to 5 months and you completely pay off like 4 years of education? Like, there's not a lot of jobs where you can do that. And so, it's not my place to say if it's a greedy request or if it's an unrealistic request, but certainly it was one that I was like, okay, I think there's probably, I don't think that the business case is being made here so much as the, as the wish. But what interested me though was that the discussion was very, very specific, right? You've got the specific dollar figure that you're going for because, it achieves the lifestyle that you want, or it gets you under this debt burden or anything like that. And again, I am not making a value judgment on aspiring to any of those things. Those are things that I would want for myself if I was in his position. So again, it's not this guy was a bad guy for doing this. But what happened was he kind of left for a while and then he'd come back. And I was curious. I did ask him, how did the release go? And just in case anybody's wondering, I was not asking it with the big grin on my face. So how did it go? Right? Like I did want to see how the release was, because obviously I hadn't seen him for a bit. And the answer was, well, I'm not rich. And this was actually really telling for me. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this article, even though it's many years later, because it's very interesting to me that the language of success is specificity, right? You will release the sales data on your successful game. You will say the dollar value of what you earned from the successful game. But when you haven't succeeded, it's euphemism. Right? I'm not rich allows for the possibility that maybe the game was successful. It just wasn't a super success. But, from the context, you can tell that this thing did not work out as well. And obviously, again, I feel bad for the guy. It's why I'm reluctant to say the game, because, it's clear that they did not necessarily want to talk as openly about it as before, when the game was... had all of its potential ahead of it. I actually noticed after the fact when I looked it up that the price kept sort of knocking down. So I think now it's around like $5 or $6 before discounts, which is, I don't know if that's a good base price, but like that's probably a little bit closer to what I would have expected taking a look at the price. But now, again, to be clear, if you take a look at the site formerly known as Gamasutra, now known as Game Developer, there will actually be blogs that do talk about a game not necessarily being successful. And I would argue it's probably easier to learn from successes because there are some fairly clear signposts that you can give in terms of things that worked, whereas failures can sometimes be you did something right, but there was some other dependency that didn't work out. And so it needed to sort of be, like it was maybe a mismatch as opposed to, you did the wrong thing. And this is difficult. For those of you who are curious, this is one of the reasons why I'm looking into Facebook ads, because I got to help somebody out with this stuff. So the challenge though is that when you look at data, so like I'm an economist, so obviously I don't get to work with idealized data. Like it's heaven if I have experimental data, right? If we're able to, I don't know, just randomly turn on and off all the stock exchanges for the world for a year, or I don't know, randomly assign who goes to college. There's some big and important questions that can be answered with the sort of rigor that we would assign to like the pharmaceutical industry. But the fact of the matter is that that's not, like, we can't do that. You can't do that in social sciences. It's unethical and it's also highly impractical. So there are tools for trying to deal with these kinds of problems. But I think one of the big difficulties is that it's very popular to write data-driven articles right now. In fact, one of the things I'm a little worried about with this article, which is why I sent it off to a couple of professionals that I know, is that I do not want to just sort of annoy the the game developer influencer community, because I do think that there is some value in being able to post this stuff. But the drawback is that the assumption is you report your data, the rest of the other game developers report their data, and so we may not be able to try and come up with a generalized sort of view on how the game environment works from that one article, but from the collection of articles, we wind up with a more representative view. And again, the drawback is that if you're able to get someone to play a game, you're probably able to get someone to read an article. You're also more likely to talk about your game if it was a success. If it's a failure, you're probably not going to share the sales data. And so again, the challenge is that there's an overemphasis on the successes and what the developers of successes did, even if they're things that lots of people did and didn't meet success. And that's one of the reasons why I focus on demos, because I have actually looked at a game's sales data, both before the game was released and after the game was released, and it did participate in a demo, and it did participate in a Steam event. And I remember I still have the report that I wrote for them, which says there does not seem to be any evidence that the demo resulted in more wish lists for this game. What I can tell you, though, is that when that game was released, it actually got mixed reviews, and a lot of reviews were commenting on the fact that they didn't put it in these words, but they did say that basically the first third of the game was given away for free because that was what they put in the demo. Now, one, that's not true because it was basically the tutorial level. The remaining other missions for that game were considerably more involved. But again, you're dealing with players' perceptions. And in this case here, the fact that it was put into a demo, even though the level wasn't even complete, they perceived that as having no value. It was actually something that removed value from the game by its existence. So it didn't add more wish lists. It did, however, result in a lower rating. So like when you look on Steam, you've got like your blue text, which is good, your orange text, which is, not so good, and then your red text, which is stay away. And so it is absolutely fair to say that that game suffered in sales. It didn't generally do that good anyway, but its sales were even lower than what it would have been when it was released because it had lower reviews as a result of the demo, specifically as a result of the demo because of the change in perceived value. And the reason I feel comfortable saying that is that the developer eventually removed the demo from the game. And if you look at that demo today, or that game today, it actually is rated mostly positive. The demos improved as time went by and people forgot about the demo. The game's actual value has been realized, and because the game was not successful, they've not done content updates. It is basically the same game that it was on release. The only thing that's changed is more people have played it because the game's gone on sale, or because, people have just discovered it, or they've, found it through other means. So in that case, I'm not just making it up when I say that game demos can actually hurt a game. They absolutely can, because I've seen it and I have the data to back it up. But the challenge is that this is just one example. And again, the thing is that if you go and take a look at a lot of data-driven articles on game demos, you are going to see this prologue or this game devo, resulted in this many wish lists, and this is why it was successful. Everybody should go and do a game demo. And my answer to that is, well, no, because you're going to divert resources away from game development, and, are these extra wish lists people who are going to buy the game, or are they just playing this demo because they're looking for a free game to play? When they wish list it, are they buying it within the first year of release? Are they waiting for the game to be on an 85% discount before they buy the game? Do they buy the game at all? because you can do a bunch of things to get people to hit that wish list button, but it doesn't necessarily mean they intend to buy it. There's a lot of other things that you can consider on that, and none of this stuff gets addressed. All that we get to hear about are the cases of people who have unusually high wish lists, because again, it's the bias towards success. So again, there's a few different ways you can do it. I think the easiest one would just be, I wish more people would report things that weren't successful. But that's where that's coming from. But I didn't really answer your question, YC Gammon. Early access is a little bit of a different case because people are buying the game. And so obviously you can return it within the 2 hours. That's, in this case, this is my argument for saying that demos are irrelevant now. But in terms of early access, like at the very least, somebody is taking an action to support the game, like to actually buy something. And again, they may not like it and they may return it. There's lots of things that can happen between being interested in an early access game and buying it, but it's a bit different from the situations I'm talking about here, because you can say you have a successful early access game, or you can say you have a successful released game. Early access for some games absolutely has been a factor to that game's success. And in other cases, people have felt very frustrated with early access because, they raise the price, or because they work on DLC, or there's any other number of things that people might be upset with. But the difference here is I haven't really seen a concerted effort in terms of people talking about, we did early access and here are our numbers and here's how we say this is a good thing. In this case here, I'm talking a little bit more about the rhetoric and the sort of the selection bias that's happening in terms of game data. So you can see how they could demos and are probably more so less needed now than before. Yeah, I agree. Due to generous refund policies in Steam, like you mentioned, plus people typically look to online content creators. Yeah, so that is where was it? Broadcasting both on Steam and streaming platforms. That was definitely what I had in mind when I was thinking of that. And for the type of feel they need to see. And yeah, I mean, I don't entirely disagree with you, Hissing Walnuts. I think Paradox has actually specifically designed their games in such a way that you will need more than 2 hours to really engage with it. I'm less convinced that, I still think the window is sufficient for deciding whether or not you're into the game or not. Again, particularly because the refund doesn't exist in a vacuum. But you have all these other things. Again, even traditional reviews, right? PC Gamer is still a publication. And of course, we have Metacritic now, which will even give you an aggregation of all of the reviews. I'm not entirely convinced that, that 2 hours is I don't think the policy would be to extend the refund window. I think people have enough to decide whether or not they'd want to stick with the game, or at the very least, the amount of time they've spent with it has said that, yeah, you should probably contribute something towards it. But in this case here, I would not be convinced saying that. I'm personally not convinced that demos are necessary at a time when we can return games essentially under any circumstance. Anyways, I think I'm still tagged as Terra Invicta, so I appreciate the feedback. I apologize for not having it in a slightly better form. I should actually take some time to reach out to those people who I sent the article to, just to let them know that I'm actually not that bad at writing. But if there isn't anything to follow up on, I should probably raid Outworld, who is currently playing Medieval 2 Total War. But thank you everybody for watching. I'm going to be back Wednesday. Brace Yourself did give me a key for Godless. I did say that I was going to do Industries of Titan last week, though, so I'm going to try and find a way of cramming in Godless as well as Industries of Titan. I may flip a coin on Wednesday, I'm not sure. Friday, we will probably be back to Against the Storm, which is another Hooded Horse published release. And then for those of you who are here for Terra Invicta, that will be next week. next Monday. Again, thank you very much for watching. Please enjoy Outworld. Normally a Mortal Kombat streamer, but currently having an absolute whale of a time in Medieval 2 Total War. Personally, not necessarily a game that I'll try myself. I struggle with the with old school Total War controls, but his enthusiasm is infectious. So I will leave you in his capable hands. Also, his mod Uncle Cranky totally hates me, so you can definitely mention my name in his and really annoy him. No, please don't. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.